W rule came in, but that was the theory behind them. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Apparently, he'd broken his leg in a match against Sheffield United in 1874 and wanted to stop it from happening again. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads, sewed them into his socks and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch. Ta-da! Shin pads. Like all great genius inventors, everyone took the mickey at first. To be fair, he probably looked quite stupid running around with these on. But it's thought his whole Nottingham Forest team then began wearing them from 1887, and the first known use of them in a match was in 1894, in a match between Newcastle and the then Woolwich Arsenal. Eventually, FIFA clocked on that this protection was pretty important for footballers. Multiple studies have shown wearing shin pads clearly reduces the risk of players getting lower leg injuries. And so in 1990, basically 100 years after Widdowson first put them on, shin pads were made compulsory. It became a part of Law 4 of IFAB. That's the body responsible for setting the laws of the game internationally. But the law doesn't actually specify anything about measurements of shin pads. It just says pads must be made of a suitable material and be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection. It's really vague, and players can get away with a lot. A lot of grassroots clubs are choosing to ban micro shin pads for obvious reasons though, especially after a 15-year-old player from Penistone Church broke his leg while wearing them. Still no change from IFAB though. That's why Grealish & Co can still get away with these ones, which are no bigger than a credit card and which seem to offer little to no protection whatsoever.
Hello there and welcome to the Transfer Insiders here on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and I'm alongside Angelina Kelly. Loads to get into this show, so much. I mean, we'll be discussing Danny Welbeck. What about that? Jordan Henderson recently being linked with Chelsea as well. We'll look at the changes that seem to be happening at Real Madrid. They're going through a bit of a transition, aren't they? Could Vinicius Jr. be heading to Arsenal? Arsenal fans, dare to dream. Aston Villa's on the agenda as well. The set-piece coach, he's been pinched by Chelsea, hasn't he, it seems. And Angelina and me, of course, will be getting into Manchester United. Loads more between now and 10. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. Angelina, how are you? The Inside Devils connection.
I know, we've been reunited, haven't we? I'm good. I'm really good. A week back from the World Cup. Jet lag still in me, I'll be honest. But
when did you come back? Tuesday?
Literally, Tuesday. Well, I was flying kind of Monday night, so this time last week, I'll have been at the airport.
Oh, you did a good stint out there, I have to say as well. Yes. And I said we've got a big show and there's loads to talk about and the important topics. And the first thing I have to talk about, I'm going to get stuck into it, Ange. Yep. What about Rory's shirt? Did you see that on the way out? That was unbelievable. I know he's still out there, and I know he's probably listening as well. I had to pull him on the way out. It looked like, I don't know if you guys had the pleasure of seeing the bottom of his shirt, but I think it was like the Gibraltar Rock on it or something. There was a beach.
It was a fashion choice, wasn't it?
It was. Does it get the Angelina seal of approval?
I mean, whatever makes you happy. I mean, I spent a lot of time at the World Cup with people that were dressed as lions in 40-degree heat. So, you know what? Whatever makes people happy.
Yeah, exactly. And he was in shorts as well, I have to say that as well, which, you didn't get the displeasure of seeing. So, let's get into it. And the first thing, let's kind of piggyback on that World Cup point. Infantino's comments of the World Cup, I've got a few of them in front of me here. He said you were consumed by hate and criticism, that you missed it all. The 56-year-old said, he also said, you hide behind your pens and your papers and behind your screen spreading hate and false rumours. We were both out there. I was there for the group stage. You were there for the group and the knockouts as well. Is there any weight to what he's saying, from your opinion, from someone who was on the ground, Ange?
I mean, I just think overall, I don't know what we're gaining from this, to be completely honest. Some of the things that he's saying, in my opinion, aren't 100% accurate. You know, he said that we experience no violence, no incidents, 100% safety and security, only joy and happiness. I think he used the word joy 10 times. But, there were videos of fans fighting, at full time that the players were scrapping. Do you know what I mean? So it does happen. I think that when he's talking about, the joy of the World Cup and we were the ones providing all of this joy and unity, etc., I don't know how much FIFA and the USA, Canada and Mexico are responsible for that. I think it's just the beauty of the World Cup. I think you could have it in the majority of places and it's still going to unify people. You're still going to see people come together. So I don't know if I'm 100% having it. The world needs, love, not hate, tolerance, not division that he's talking about, without getting too much into the politics. When you're, cozying up next to somebody like Donald Trump, in the Republican Party, who's speaking to people in America, has caused some division. I think it's a little bit rich coming from him, but talking about people missing the World Cup because of hate, it's really, because of certain hateful policies of Donald Trump that certain fans weren't able to get into America. There were travel bans. As much as it was, it was great. The football was brilliant. I think having extra teams in the competition was good.
It worked, didn't it? Because there was talk about that, but it did work. So some of the on the pitch stuff was good.
Yeah, definitely. But I think regarding people not being able to be there, a lot of it was down to, the extensive travel. I mean, I was exhausted. I mean, and people were getting about, doing road trips, staying wherever they could just to get around. The cost of it, the majority of people I was speaking to, I remember speaking to one fan who had spent £3,000 just to go to Boston to see one game. I was speaking to people that were spending 40, 45, 50,000 pounds, more than that, using money that they'd saved for their kids' university funds. When you think about it like that and how much money people are spending, you're automatically cutting certain people off that aren't financially able to do that. Even with all the traveling, people who may not be able to travel like that, the public transport in America wasn't great. For people that maybe aren't great on their feet, it's going to be difficult. You're spending hundreds of dollars in Ubers, etc. So I just think that saying that it's, people are just being haters and all that type of thing, that's why they missed it. There was a lot of different things at play.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the transport as well, I was on the ground quite a bit and we were both fortunate to be working there. But you get to a place and there's only one way to go. You have to get this train. And it is well run in terms of, where you're going, they're pointing in the right direction. Have a great day, sir, and all that, so it had all that. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the customer service, it was brilliant. But I got to the train station on the way to the England-Panama game. 2 stops. I'm Google Maps in it. 2 stops. $100 for 2 stops. And it did feel at points like I was being held hostage by the lack of infrastructure there. It was collapsing on itself. In terms of, he's talked about he unified all the nations. Did he have any part to play in that? Or I mean, from my perspective, it was what happened on the pitch and the fans being as passionate as they are anyway. That's done that, not him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. And it is because of the World Cup. It's not that he has gone around personally and sprinkled some, fairy dust on the situation. That's what happens with football. Football is an amazing sport. It is loved all over the world. So naturally, people are going to come together. And, speaking about fans, I know that he was speaking about the Iranian team as well. That they were allowed to enter the US. What's the problem? They were allowed to enter the US, but they had to leave as soon as the game was over. They were the only side being forced to enter and exit in that way. And like I touched on, fans not being able to be there from certain countries. It's just, I just think he needed to, just have a minute maybe before writing this monologue.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and he's talked about unifying all the fan bases and unifying the nations. One nation I found that wasn't being unified was the American fans out there. And look, the people were fantastic. But personally, from my experience, I mean, I had the pleasure of interviewing fans. That I had to really search for a USA soccer jersey. I really did. So in terms of him looking at all the other nations, he didn't unify his own, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess with the USA fans, I mean, there are a lot of sports that they do prioritise. There were certain people that you come across that were paying attention. A lot of the time it was because they had, family connections to Europe. So they had, grandparents who were from, Spain or the UK or Scotland or wherever. And that's why they were invested. But I agree, it was difficult to find fans that were, living and breathing it. I saw one USA fan who was on a plane, and before we took off, he had the USA game on, and he was watching it avidly. And there was an American person, I wouldn't say a fan, next to him, and he said, "Oh, by the way, do you realise, like the USA have just scored or whatever it was?" And he was like, "No, I've not really been following it." And again, people that look at the talkSPORT social media, speaking to fans and even showing them pictures of stars of the World Cup, past and present. People didn't know who Maradona was.
We love it though, don't we? There's nothing a Brit loves more during that World Cup than going like this when an American doesn't know their football knowledge. So we absolutely pride in it. Yeah. You were out there for virtually the whole time, weren't you?
Yeah.
How do you rank this World Cup? I was listening to the boys on Drive just there, and they were talking about how Rory wasn't entirely convinced by it. I myself thought, I like a World Cup where the big boys turn up. That's exactly what I want to see. And all of them did, bar Cristiano Ronaldo, despite him saying he was back, one of our old guard, of course. Yeah. But how did you rate it out there on the ground? You went to virtually all the matches that you could in the cities that you were in, right?
Yeah, I mean, minus the England-France game, which I watched whilst I was in New York. I went to every England game during the World Cup. I had the privilege of going to the final as well. And I know that people had certain opinions on the quality of the football in the final even. I personally enjoyed it. How can you complain, watching World Cup football? I think people did what they needed to do on the pitch. You mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. I've been very vocal on Ronaldo, and
be vocal. What have you been vocal about?
I mean, it hit Spanish media the first week of the World Cup that I was talking about how he really should be stepping aside if he loves Portugal so much. They had such a great opportunity to go all the way in this World Cup, in my personal opinion, and I think that they're held back by Cristiano Ronaldo and his ego. And I think if he was to step aside a little bit and realise that there's life after him and it's okay.
Yeah.
I just think that things would have been a little bit easier. I don't think he's been brilliant at any of the World Cups for Portugal. This was the first time that he scored in the knockout stages of one. I think that says it all. But I digress. But I just think for me, it was the things off the pitch. It was the transport. It was the cost. It was these open air stadiums. I mean, all the training for the hot weather. The only hot game for England, I think, was Miami, because in Boston it was raining. Yeah. New York it was raining. Atlanta and Dallas, air-conditioned stadiums. Mexico City, it was raining, but then it kind of died off. So the open-air stadiums for me, it got me. And I kept sitting there thinking, when American football is on in like January or something, how are people sitting in New York, in New Jersey even, in the freezing cold, watching this? I mean, props to them, because I don't know if I could do that.
The hots are hots and the colds are colds. I know what you're thinking. You're tuned in. You're thinking this is the Transfer Insiders, and they haven't talked about a transfer yet. So let's tweak that a little bit. The World Cup, for me, obviously, as I say, the big boys turned up, but it is also a good opportunity for the players who aren't necessarily at the big clubs and to be in the shop window a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And we see it, I think, every World Cup. There's always a couple of names that break through. Some of them end up going on to be successes. Some of them don't. You've also got players that aren't at World Cups. You think of somebody like Kvaratskhelia that you think, wow, it's obviously that's his nation, but part of you thinks, oh God, it would have been great to see him on a World Cup stage.
Haaland's first World Cup is case in point, isn't it? And look at the tournament that he's had.
Oh, and people absolutely loved him. I mean, we were with the Norway fans. Obviously, they love him, but even just speaking to fans out and about, everyone loved him. The vibes that he's brought, the ability to, laugh at himself with all the memes and the social media. The Norway fans were great. I got involved with a bit of rowing on Ocean Drive. I know Adrian Durham has got an opinion on the rowing. He's not a fan of the rowing. He's not happy about it. And I kind of get it, because it takes a while to get going. I was sat there for about half an hour like, right, what are we doing here? Are we rowing or what? But when it started, it was great fun. So yeah, Haaland, great example, first World Cup, and it's magical to watch.
Yeah, and some of those players that aren't as big as Haaland would have been in the shop window. And what we'll do next is we'll get talkSPORT's transfer correspondent Ben Jacobs. He'll join us and he'll talk some transfers. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT.
Vinicius Jr. I'll read this from the Telegraph Sport, their sports pull-out this morning. Dom King writes, Arsenal prepared to offer Brazilian forward Vini Jr. the biggest contract in the club's history as they plot to outline their soaring ambition. He currently commands a weekly salary, 400,000 euros a week at Madrid, but Arsenal would look to improve that to maximise their chances of pulling off an audacious coup. It kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it, boys, on Saturday afternoon. He's got a year left on his deal at Real Madrid. Arsenal exploring the possibility, Troy, of signing Vinny Jr. Is it going to happen? And if it does happen, where does this rank in Premier League history in terms of biggest coups for the Premier League, not just Arsenal?
If it did happen, it would be amazing for the Premier League to have a superstar on that level in terms of global appeal, blah, 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 all that stuff. I don't like it.
Why?
I don't like it. I don't think it suits the way that Arsenal play. I don't think his personality suits Arteta.
What do you mean his personality?
I think he's a massive diva in regard to like what he wants, what he needs. And I don't think he would buy into the collective. And now that would be something new for Arteta to have to deal with, right? Because he's all about the group. So how do you have Saka on one side who's
You are listening and watching the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and of course, the wonderful Angelina Kelly. The Commonwealth Games are going on, aren't they? So we're going to get a nice update here from Georgie Heath. Georgie, how's it going on over there? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we will circle back to Georgie shortly. But what I can do, I promised you Ben Jacobs before the break, and I'm going to deliver on Ben Jacobs. Ben, talkSPORT transfer reporter, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good, very good. All the better for speaking to you. I can see you've got the messy backdrop there. Look at you. I could see that you were converted before the World Cup. I'm judging that anyway.
Yeah, all of that was before the England game. I really should take it down.
Exactly. Let's talk about transfers. That's what the people are listening and watching for. Where do we start? Do we start with Danny Welbeck to Chelsea, Ben? What's going on there and how concrete is this?
Yeah, very concrete. In fact, Chelsea are looking for two really experienced names and top characters as well, which is kind of the mantra of this window for Chelsea. Find footballers that fit, but also the right leaders and personalities, and they're working on a deal for Danny Welbeck. I think we might see movement on this in the next 24 to 48 hours because Brighton will not unduly stand in Welbeck's way, and the player's open to a move. And then Chelsea are also exploring a deal for Jordan Henderson, who still is contracted at Brentford, but my understanding is Brentford are prepared to let Henderson leave on a free transfer, kind of settling with him and allowing him one more big opportunity. And Chelsea seemingly at the moment are leading that race as well, even though there's some competition from within England and outside as well. So suddenly that average age of the Chelsea squad might be creeping up through a combination of both Welbeck and Henderson, two excellent signings. And I think the whole point here is they brought in Dave Fallows, ex-Liverpool, as one of now 5 sporting directors. And Fallows will, of course, know Henderson, but his big thing is about scouting and looking at the impact of that footballer off the field as well to make sure that you get the right team spirit and chemistry. And these kind of signings might well be the missing pieces. And don't forget, it's no huge surprise because at the beginning of the window, Chelsea tried for Granit Xhaka as well. So obviously there's been a slight switch here towards an older kind of player. And both of these deals could develop very quickly.
Do you know if is and you might not know this, but is Henderson is he admired in terms of his ability? Because I understand that the strategy here might be, look, we need to raise the average age, as you've said there, and you can tell that just by who they're being linked with now. But Xhaka, for example, I feel like could do more of a job than somebody like Henderson. So is it? I get the age part. Is it his profile as well as a player that they'd be looking at there, Ben?
Some of it's opportunism because Xhaka was not seen as being a particularly expensive player, but in the end it was Sunderland that didn't want to sell. And then you have a situation now with Henderson where he's available on a free. You wouldn't have thought that Danny Welbeck is going to be crazy money because of his contractual situation as well, although Brighton are obviously going to be no pushover. Chelsea know that firsthand from doing several deals. But this, for me, is about almost finding mentors and squad players and people that have been there and done that can come into this Chelsea squad. So if Chelsea keep Emega, he could be loaned, but he's not going to be permanently sold. Then Welbeck can be that mentor in the centre of the park. You've got young midfielders like Dario Asugo. Okay, Enzo Fernandez is a role model in many ways because he's the same age as some of these other players, and he's a World Cup winner, and he's been both captain and vice-captain, of course, of the football club. Same for Reece James if he plays in midfield. But the bottom line is, I think Chelsea are starting to realise that the model isn't only about data, the model isn't only about value, it's about that practical chemistry, and players like Welbeck and also Henderson, if they come off, will be welcome additions on and off the field.
Let's talk Real Madrid. Diamande, well, the narrative seems to be Diamande. You can obviously confirm this for that. Is that as good as done? And then in terms of who they bring in means Vinicius Jr. might be out the door. Is there any validity to that rumour?
Yeah, so Yan Diamande is going to join Real Madrid, as we revealed yesterday. It's just about those final details, and it's more now around things like payment terms and add-ons being fully finalised, because all parties have got a number in mind, and everyone thinks this is going to move relatively quickly now. So it wouldn't remotely surprise me if Yan Diamande, before the week is out, is officially a Real Madrid player. And then you have to, as you say, think about this in terms of Vinny Jr. Jose Mourinho's kind of got two decisions to make, really. One, is Diamande going to be used on the right or on the left? And two, if he's used on the right, is actually Kylian Mbappe going to get more game time over on that left wing? Because my understanding is that Jose Mourinho thinks, like many in the game, that's his best position. So then suddenly Real Madrid could attack the market for another form of striker. And either way, Vinny Jr. has competition on that left-hand side, either via Diamande, and they have the same agent, or via Kylian Mbappe. And at the same time, whilst Arsenal are there and prepared to move, we can't rule out the opposite extreme, which is the kind of challenge of Real Madrid and the politics and the games, because Real this week are going to try and get Vinny Jr. to make headway on a new deal. And they have a bit of leverage because they can say exactly the points that I've made. Stay, prominent role. If not, we've got Mbappe on the left, we've got Diamande on the left. All of these other options mean you could be pushed down, because Real are basically going to say to Vinny Jr., sign a new deal and you are prominent. Don't sign a new deal and we're going to try and sell you and force you down the pecking order to put pressure on the player to go. So we have two extremes with Vinny Jr. New deal could move this week, or the door becomes fully ajar for Arsenal. And this is why there's some caution from Arsenal. They want Vinny Jr., they love Vinny Jr., but he only really becomes the leading target if in the next few days Vinny Jr. becomes genuinely available. And it is unfortunately both extremes, new deal and quickly, or sale, because Real Madrid do not want a scenario where the window shuts, Vinny Jr. is still there, and then they risk losing him on a free in the summer of 2027.
Wow, that feels so blockbuster, that story. I'm really interested to see how that develops. Liverpool, of course, they won the transfer window in the last summer, didn't they? But the league didn't pan out like that for them. But we're waking up to rumours that Bradley Barcola could be going to Liverpool. What about that one?
Yeah, so if PSG had got Yan Diamande, you think door completely open for Bradley Barcola and Liverpool. Now PSG are working on Magnus Akliouche, and they're confident despite the fact that Liverpool have been linked. And if they get him, then again, Barcola is expected to leave, because PSG don't want a player that expects a starting spot. There's never a guarantee in this project to any star, and he's only got 2 years left on his deal. So Barcola's made it clear he's not going to sign a new contract. He did that before the World Cup, and PSG are now open to a sale. Their starting price, and this will raise eyebrows, is 170 million euros, which is 145 million pounds. There's an element of grandstanding, and the grain of truth is that their belief as a back-to-back Champions League winner and a star performer for France, even though they couldn't win the World Cup, should be worth more than Yan Diomande, Elliot Anderson, Morgan Rogers. But these were deals in the case of Rogers and Anderson that are at 116 and 117. Anderson the former, Rogers the latter. So that's not quite £145 million. And I think Liverpool's perspective is they'll move if the price is reasonable. Now, it's not uncommon to have a 25 million gap. Newcastle United went not for sale Alexander Isak, 150 million Alexander Isak, all fair reflections at one point in time, but the final price was 125 million. So if 145 is the starting point and it gets down to about 120, we'll have to understand if Liverpool think that's value or if actually they point towards previous quoted prices, because remember, Liverpool were there in summer 2025, and when they were exploring Barcola a year ago, the price was closer to 85 million euros. So it's basically, give or take, double the price now. And if it remains double the price, Liverpool won't move. But if that number drops a little bit closer to what Liverpool had in mind a year ago, suddenly Barcola becomes the top target.
Oh, I've got you. Okay. And I've got a name in front of me here. John Stones. John Stones. And you're still getting a good player in John Stones, in my opinion. But then there's a team after him, which I've not seen much yet. John Stones to Inter Milan. That's the question. Where's that come from?
Yeah, I think this is advanced as well. So Stones was always going to assess his options after the World Cup. He had an excellent World Cup. He put himself in the shop window. But interestingly, the Italian teams that have looked at John Stones, Juventus and Inter, were there before the World Cup. And I think that's working to their advantage. More recently, Chelsea have looked. Max Lacroix's already coming in. Arsenal also like Stones. They see opportunism because William Saliba has that back injury. But they're focused at the moment on seeing if they can get Esri Konsa out of Aston Villa, which won't be easy because there's a gulf in valuation. Now, Stones has heard those Premier League pitches, but the Italian clubs have got more long-standing negotiation. And my understanding is that Inter are really close to not just persuading Stones, but actually formalising the deal. There's an agreement in principle with the player. There has been for a matter of days now post-World Cup. And unless a Premier League club, and we have to be open to this, I suppose, at the last minute hijacks the deal, all signs are that John Stones is going to sign with Inter.
Wow. Okay. And look, this isn't on the running order, so I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but I know you're an encyclopedia of transfers right now. Anything on Manchester United? I mean, come on, Ange, do us a favour.
Good news.
Yeah,
Ben.
give us some good news. Anything going on?
Nothing major at the moment, to be honest with you, I'm sorry to say. Although Manchester United confirmed the Wales under-21 goalkeeper Kit Margenson today, the 20-year-old joining from Swansea. Free transfer if you look at it on paper because his contract was up, but there was compensation involved. We know they're looking at other midfielders. We also know if they could do Aurelien Tchouameni, they'd like to, but he's got those verbal terms in place over a new deal. Fascinating fact that Real haven't announced that yet, but it's also going to be about price with that deal. They've looked at Manu Kone as well, and several other names, including Tyler Adams. So Manchester United will be opportunistic. They could add a more experienced striker, which is why some Man United fans might be surprised that they've not entered the race to try and bring back Danny Welbeck, but nothing's moving there. As it stands, it's only Chelsea that are trying to finalise that deal. And I still suspect by the end of the window, a left-back and Manchester United will move. And we know they like Lewis Hall. Hall is not in any way disillusioned with Newcastle at large, just disappointed specifically with how the season ended, i.e. no European football, lost his place to Dan Burn, didn't make the England squad, and Dan Burn did. So a bit like Vinny Jr., maybe Lewis Hall and Vinny Jr. have never been mentioned before in the same breath, but a little bit like Vinny Jr., I sense with Lewis Hall, it's going to be about new deal or the player wanting to explore options with possibly no middle ground. And if that door opens, Manchester United could be there.
Oh, that was such a lovely way of saying absolutely nothing's going on at Old Trafford right now. Honestly, you saved my feelings. I really appreciate it. Ben, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much, mate.
Speak to you soon.
And up next, we have Spanish football expert Terry Gibson. He's going to be talking us all things Madrid. And of course, Jose Mourinho is back in the dugout. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly.
a case of will we buy him? Not, more will he buy into our club's ethos and the family feel? You cannot upset the dressing room vibe for anyone, no matter their reputation or their credentials.
So are you suggesting that if he comes to your club, he will upset the dressing room?
Not if we've done due diligence and Arteta talks to the man, not the footballer. But I promise you one thing, as a little bit of an aside and maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, if we do sign him, see just how quickly he becomes the most average winger in the world.
Dave, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You say there, interview the man. When have you ever known anyone to not buy into it before they've got in the building? So if you're Vinny Jr., you're going to put best foot forward, right? I'll buy in, Gaffer. I'll do all of these things. It's more worrying for me once he's in the building. I think the way that Arsenal won it was as a team and as a collective. And then if you add this superstar in, who, as Real Madrid have found out, will only defend when he wants to, will only play a formation that he wants to play, I think it causes so much more problems than it's worth.
Yeah, but I think that Arteta and the powers that be are good enough to sniff that out. I think Arteta's already proven in the way that he dealt with Aubameyang and those big egos. He put the club first and he thought to himself, no. That's what Unai Emery couldn't do, and I don't think he's been able.
When you think about famous F1 circuits, the likes of Silverstone, Monza, Monaco come to mind. One of these is not like the others though. Monaco is just one of a number of street circuits on the calendar, and that number's only set to rise. There's a clear difference between a traditional circuit and a street circuit. One is a purpose-built facility on private land, the other is, as it sounds, a race through the streets of a major city. Monaco is the famous example, twisting and turning through the streets of the Principality with iconic backgrounds and, let's be honest, not a lot of overtaking. But from 2026, there'll be a record 10 street circuits on the calendar. It proves that cash remains king. Each track promoter gives F1 between $20 and $60 million just for the rights to host an F1 race. And when Saudi Arabia pays upwards of $100 million, you can see why it's an attractive prospect for the sport. But is it all positive? Well, the drivers aren't that bothered. If you ask a majority of them, they'll tell you historic circuits at Silverstone, Spa, Monza, Zandvoort, they're the favourites. For the sports organisers, though, it kind of makes sense. In 2025, Monaco had a record 2.3 million strong viewership in the US alone. Meanwhile, for the British Grand Prix several weeks later, 1.5 million tuned in. So while these races may not be rip-roaring, all-out action, thrill rides we want as race fans, people are tuning in even more, and bosses can demand even more cash.
Yes, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. I promised you some Real Madrid chat. I promised you Terry Gibson would be here to talk about that. And here he is. Terry, how are you?
I'm here, yes. Real Madrid are always here. Yeah. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening. Yeah, the ever-present Real Madrid. And I mean, there's so many talking points here. I mean, we can go anywhere. But I want to start with Jose Mourinho. I mean, I'm a Manchester United fan, and of course, I look back at that time so fondly. I know some people hate the exit, but I absolutely... And Angie's wincing.
Come on, Terry. Was this the best option?
Let's get into it. Are Real Madrid happy about this?
It's a strange one. When it was first muted that he was in the running to take over, I think we knew well before the end of the season that Alvaro Arbeloa wasn't going to keep the job. And it was a traumatic season. Xabi Alonso came in with high hopes. Just after Christmas, he was gone. It was almost a caretaker manager in charge for the rest of the season. And Jose Mourinho's name kept getting linked. And I thought, absolutely no chance. You know, it's been too long. There's been too many jobs between Real Madrid and now. You know, some of them have been relatively successful, some haven't been. But then the rumours wouldn't go away. And when you look at the facts, Florentino Perez, he doesn't have too many managers to turn to. He hasn't had. Zidane's had it twice, Ancelotti's had it twice. This is going to be Jose Mourinho's second time. He did try something different with Xabi Alonso, and he didn't have enough faith in him. So it's kind of not a surprise that he keeps turning back to the managers he knows best, whatever's happened in the meantime. So at first I thought absolutely no chance. I thought people were joking that Mourinho went back to Real Madrid, but as time wore on, it became almost a certainty that it was going to be him that was going to get another opportunity.
Yeah, I know. You mentioned, yeah, I mean, he likes a return. He's done it with Chelsea, hasn't he? In terms of him now and this version of him and this version of Real Madrid, is there an identity from what you're hearing that they're looking for right now? Their transfer policies, the kind of player that they're going for. As you smile and shake your head as I ask that question, does that answer itself? Does it?
Yeah, Real Madrid's identity is big money players, well, big managers, and all guns blazing and try and blow everyone away. So they don't have an identity like we see with Barcelona, for instance. We know their identity, bringing young players through the system. They have a certain style of play. With Real Madrid, it can be anything. It's just about splashing the cash, getting big name players. They're a pleasure to watch. They're a pleasure to be involved with on most weekends when you watch Real Madrid. But there isn't much of an identity. Perhaps this is maybe something slightly different. Perhaps Florentino Perez wants his team to have an identity, and perhaps he believes that Jose Mourinho is the man to do that. Now, it's 2 years on the trot now. They haven't won a trophy. So it's a shock to the system, and maybe Jose Mourinho is the shock to the system that the squad of players need. So will there be an identity? In the last couple of years, I would say there's been no identity, no pattern of play, no shape to the starting 11, just full of big-name players and hope that it works. And it hasn't. So maybe Jose Mourinho will come in and there'll be an identity in terms of discipline, tactics, a structure within the team. They're talking about 4-3-3, which wasn't the case last season. They often played with Vinicius out wide on the left and Mbappe out front, and anyone who fancied going out on the right wing could have a turn out there. It was that kind of play, and perhaps it needs discipline, and Jose Mourinho is the man to do it. But in saying that, with Jose Mourinho, we know that he can be, he is strict. He's a disciplinarian, but he can be volatile. He can upset people. It's good for me, for Spanish football, for La Liga. As I say, it's good for business. Jose Mourinho attracts attention.
Yeah.
Real Madrid attract attention. Let's not forget, 5 minutes ago, he was having a bust-up with Vinicius Junior when he was manager of Benfica. And when that happened, I thought there's absolutely no chance of Jose Mourinho going back. He's burnt that bridge now. He's not going back. But they've overlooked it. He's back. Is it all made up with Vinicius Junior? I don't know. I doubt it. But we'll wait and see. But it's going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold.
I mean, you mentioned Vinicius Junior there. That was the first thing that came into my mind as to how is this going to work. Surely an apology needs to happen. Obviously, with what happened during the Champions League, Mourinho more or less insinuating that Vinicius Junior brings on racist abuse himself, which, was an appalling thing for Mourinho to do, in my opinion. I think it was very irresponsible. If I was Vinicius Junior, I'd be wanting an apology. Whether we'll see that from Mourinho, I'm not too sure. But obviously, Vinicius Junior being linked with a move away. We've seen that Yan Diomande could potentially, will probably be coming in as well. So what do you think about Vinicius Junior then? Is this going to be the end of things? Because I just don't see how they're going to get along.
They're going to have to. If Vinicius stays at Real Madrid, and I think he will. I think that the figures
crushing the dreams of Arsenal fans here, Terry.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, it's twofold. I mean, Vinicius is a fantastic player, but he does bring baggage with him. And by that, I mean nothing against Vinicius Junior. This is about the money that's going to cost Arsenal to pay him, and this is part of the baggage has come with Kylian Mbappe joining Real Madrid and earning huge sum of money because he joined Real Madrid from PSG for nothing on a Bosman, on a free transfer. So he earns so much more than anybody else at Real Madrid, which is understandable. If you're a 200 million euro player and you're allowed to leave and join for free, it's going to be recognised in your salary and signing on fee and bonuses. And I think this is an attempt from Vinicius to try and get level with Kylian Mbappe. Now, if Vinicius does leave Real Madrid and he goes to Arsenal, And it's going to probably cost Arsenal, I would say, something in the region of £800,000 a week to give Vinicius his £500,000 a week he wants after tax. Now, Arsenal players are going to be looking at that and thinking, well, we're in the Champions League final. We only lost on penalties. We won the Premier League. And there'll be players at Arsenal that think that, if Vinicius joins and he's getting 800,000 a week, I want better wages. So it can be a problem. So, yes, Vinicius is a fantastic player. I've never heard of a Real Madrid player leaving at the age of 26 when Real Madrid will match all the money that anyone else can pay and probably more. So it's a strange one. But the big issue is he's only got a year left on his contract. Real Madrid don't want to let him run down that contract. Maybe that's the plan for Vinicius, that he wants to do a Kylian Mbappe. And if he wants to, in a year's time, leave Real Madrid and go on a free transfer, then he will be getting £800,000 a week from someone.
Yeah, it's crazy money when you think about it. And with the Diamande stuff progressing as well, you think, how is everybody going to fit in? And thinking about some of the recruitment that Real Madrid have done, they've spent when it comes to the defence. You're thinking names like Marco Correa, you've got Ibrahima Konate coming in. I wanted to ask about Denzel Dumfries on the right. We know that he can play right wing if needed. We know that he can play right back. What does this mean for someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold? Is he that sat there thinking, what is next for me? Do we think that Mourinho's going to, favour him, going to give him a bit of a chance?
I think that, I think it's going to be a good competition for who gets the right back spot. And I think when Trent Alexander-Arnold thought that Danny Carvajal was leaving the club, he probably thought, this is going to be slightly...
rubbing his hands together, wasn't he?
And now they've gone out and signed Denzel Dumfries, who's an excellent player. So that's my guess at the moment would be if Real Madrid have just signed Dumfries and Jose Mourinho was the manager that gave the okay for that signing, then I probably wouldn't be surprised that Dumfries starts the season at right back. So, but this is the problem. When you go to Real Madrid, and I mean, there are superstars there, but they've got lots of really super talented footballers. They can't all play. So Dean Howson, Alvaro Carreras, who joins last summer, within a year, Carreras is being replaced by Cucurella. Dean Howson is looking at it and thinking, well, it's going to be Konate and is it going to be Ed Militao? I might not be starting every week. So the competition for places is always fierce. They've got a ton of midfield players and a bunch of superstars up front. So it's going to be tough for even Bernardo Silva to get into the starting lineup. So there's going to be some movement out of the club. And, someone like Militao is injury prone. Rodrigo Goes is a fabulous player. He's not going to be fit till after Christmas. Brahim Diaz is a fabulous player. I can't see him figuring now. So where will he go? So I think it's not just a question of Vinicius. There's a lot of transfer action going to happen at Real Madrid. And maybe Dani Ceballos has left. He's looking for a club now. Danny Carvajal left the club. So there's going to be some players that can be picked up, not on the cheap, but certainly we're hearing rumours of Tchouameni and Camavinga maybe leaving, being the target of clubs, maybe in the Premier League as well.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of twists and turns before the season starts for Real Madrid and Mourinho.
Just sticking with Angelina's point for a second on Trent, in terms of the World Cup in England, it became a big talking point, didn't it? Because the right back situation at one point got dire, and everyone was saying, using hindsight and going, how can you not take a player of Trent's calibre? In terms of the Madridsters and the Madrid fans, what was there a thought and a feeling of how has he not been taken to the World Cup by the fan base? How do they view him as a player? Was that a shock to the Madridsters as well?
It was a shock to Real Madrid fan base that none of their players originally were picked for the Spain squad.
Yeah.
And then Trent Alexander-Arnold wasn't picked. So it was, they were disappointed with that. But I don't think he really he hasn't become a huge crowd favourite because Danny Carvajal was in the shadows. Danny Carvajal was always going to be the more popular right back. That's obvious. And he's an absolute legend at the club. And it was an uphill task. Plus, Alexander-Arnold picked up quite a few injuries. The first half of the season, in particular, he barely played. He was involved in one or two defeats that Real Madrid had, and he was partly blamed for it by the media. So it's not been a rip-roaring success for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Yeah. So I don't think there was the element of surprise from the Real Madrid fans that maybe the UK public had in terms of Trent Alexander not being picked for the World Cup squad.
Terry, you've been a superstar. Thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Rob.
Next up, we're going to be talking about Aston Villa. They are on the agenda as they continue to have a lot of outgoings. They've had a controversial incoming as well, so we will get stuck into that. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. We tried to throw over to Georgie earlier for an update on the Commonwealth Games. She couldn't hear me. Can you hear me now, Georgie?
I've got you now.
How are things over there?
Honestly, it's mental gymnastics over here. There is so much going on, but that's what we love. Commonwealth Games, and it's all the action. So we've had 3x3 basketball going on. England men and women both winning those ones. So very exciting there. And then in the para mixed pair bowls, B2B3 semi-final happening this evening. England and taking on Wales. Scotland also in action against New Zealand. In the swimming tonight, we've got Adam Peaty. 3 swimmers in the men's freestyle into the final. The Aussies, they keep winning medals, but we'll just ignore them for now. There's netball going on, Jamaica against Uganda, and then Scotland later in action against Trinidad and Tobago. Athletics going on, Georgia Hunter-Bell looking very strong in her 800-metre heat, and then plenty of boxing going on. We've had in the women's flyweight, Ruby White winning hers. Brooke Neely from Scotland was taken down by the Sri Lankan, and Jude Gallagher of Northern Ireland winning 4-0 against Pakistan's Quadran Ullah, and actually looking very, very strong. So much sport going on. There's medals being handed out in all direction, and as we know, athletics got underway today, which is always a very exciting one for the Commonwealth Games. One of the big ones. There's big crowds in, and it's just exciting to see so much sport in action. I just don't know where to look at the moment.
Wow, it's all going on in the Commonwealth Games. And now it's all going on in Birmingham as well. It's my neck of the woods, Ange. I don't mind telling you that. And we're going to talk Aston Villa with Max Stokes of Villa on Tour YouTube channel. How are you, Max? You okay?
Yeah, all good, guys. You okay?
Yeah, very good, mate. All the better for talking to you and getting into Aston Villa, because it's such an interesting transfer window, to say the least, so far for them. What about the fact that you've signed João Gomez from Wolves and Johan Manzambi from Freiburg? That's good news. Is that been received positively by the Villa fan base?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a bit of a confusing summer for Villa fans. I think it was obviously we won the Europa League at the end of May, and we kind of didn't know where the summer was going to go. I think there was a kind of inkling that there might be a slight changing of the guard. Some of the older players sort of going. We had one of the oldest squads in the Premier League, so we all kind of knew as a fan base that something kind of had to give at some point. I think a lot has definitely happened over the summer, maybe a little bit more slightly than we would have expected. But I'm excited as long as we've got Unai Emery at the football club. I'm not too concerned. But yeah, exciting signings so far, and I think there'll be plenty more to come.
Okay, well, that's the signings. What about the outgoings? What about the sales? So you lose Morgan Rogers and Yuri Tielemans. I mean, me and Andrew are Manchester United fans, and we were both speaking before the show. We're so happy with that. Like, so happy with that. But does that mean on the flip side, you got the empath that I am, Max, you must have been absolutely devastated to see him go.
Yeah, I don't think the Rodgers one came as a huge surprise. I think with the financial stuff that goes on around Villa pretty much every single season, despite us winning a trophy and finishing in the Champions League places, we still have to sort of comply constantly, which is boring. But I don't think Rodgers came as a massive surprise because he's right up there with one of our better players. Like I said, we've got an aging squad. He is one of the only proper youthful players that we had. So that wasn't a major surprise. I think the Tielemans one definitely was. That absolutely came out of the blue, obviously learning of his release clause. Yeah. He's a fantastic player. But again, 2 years left on his contract at 29 years old. I think, it's probably a sensible decision. It kind of reminded me of when Emery let Douglas Luiz go at a similar sort of time in his career. And obviously he hasn't really gone on to do too much. I'm not saying Tielemans will go on to have a similar career path as Douglas Luiz, because I think he's a better player. But yeah, Rodgers, not a massive surprise. I think Tielemans definitely was there.
Yeah. What about Luca Digne as well? He's close to move to PSG. Do you perceive that as a loss? What's the general consensus on him and the fact that you might be losing out on him?
Yeah, fantastic servant. Really, really good servant for Aston Villa. Came in for quite a bit of money, to be fair. I think near 30 million, definitely over 25 under Steven Gerrard, was on big wages, but has been a fantastic servant for Villa. Obviously won a trophy, has been really, really consistent as well. Really, really consistent performer, right up there with our best performers over the last couple of years, and he's improved as well. And I think, but it's a great deal. As much as I'm praising him, I think it's a good deal for all parties, really. He's going back to France. He's getting a brilliant move to PSG where he'll play games. And we're getting a fee for him. Again, it's what, between 7 and 8. I'm not too fussed with it. And again, it opens the door for Ian Maatsen to sort of step up, I think.
Yeah, Max, I've got 2 words for you. And I didn't open with this because it's such a controversial topic. Alejandro Garnacho. What a player this is for so many reasons on and off the field. I will get Angelina's thoughts on this as she shakes her head as well. We've had many dispute on Garnacho. What is your feeling on that signing?
So much talk around the lad, isn't there? So much talk around him. I think on paper, I think it's a decent move for him. He's coming to a club that will look after him, respect him. The fans will get right behind him. He's an exciting player. He's got that little bit of pace, which I think we haven't seen all too much of. It's an interesting signing because we don't typically play with rapid wingers. We haven't had that really since Diaby and Bailey were sort of dovetailing in that season. We qualified for the Champions League the first time round a couple of years ago. But I'm all for it. I think now it's happened and all the noise has sort of settled down a little bit. Let's just get behind him and support him. Emery really wanted him. It was an Emery-driven thing rather than sort of him being presented to him. So I'm all for it. I think we're just going to get behind him. It's exciting. And he's playing in a settled team where there's not loads of hysteria constantly. So hopefully that'll sort of settle him down. We'll get some confidence into him and we'll go from there.
And Angelina, why are you shaking your head for?
I don't know. As an Aston Villa fan, I have to ask you, does it not worry you that Unai Emery is just so keen on saving these reject Man United wingers? I mean, Rashford did all right. Sancho didn't work out. I don't know why he thinks that this one could go better. And it's no disrespect to Unai Emery, but I just think that Garnacho is very, very lucky to get this chance. And I really hope that he takes it, because getting booted out of 2 top clubs usually means that you don't get a third chance. I think he's very lucky with Villa. For me, I don't know what you think about this, but he's a bit of a contrarian for me. I mean, he chose to play for Argentina over Spain, but then he's a Ronaldo fanboy. No wonder he keeps finding himself in positions where he's annoyed people. I just think he's a bit of a walking contradiction. Is there any worry about him that he could even maybe disrupt what you've got at Villa?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that everything's rosy and there's no possible problems at all. I'm not just going to blindside myself with that. I think Sancho was slightly different because Sancho came right at the end of the window where last summer was really poor for Villa, proper struggling again with the finances. Obviously didn't qualify for the Champions League then. So Sancho was kind of a last resort. Again, I don't think it was an Emery-driven thing, that one. I think he was kind of presented to Emery, do you want him on or not? It was just a body through the door. Garnacho, this is Emery-driven. And look, Chelsea are an absolute basket case. They're signing players, especially wingers, every 5 minutes. Garnacho is, as long as he's fit, going to play pretty much every game, in my opinion, on that left-hand side. It's going to be settled team, settled squad, rather than the absolute basket case that Chelsea and Manchester United have been when he's been there. Managers coming in left, right and centre, being played in all sorts of positions. It's settled at Villa, which I don't think Garnacho has had in his whole career. So it's positive, and who knows where he could go. We've got great potential, 22 years old. Exciting.
Look at the...
Well, let it slide that you're calling Manchester United a basket case there. I'll let that. So look, let's fingers crossed that his brother doesn't start getting involved and kicking off, because his brother's got a bit of a track record. I don't think we can blame it all on Manchester United. But you touched on the PSR. Like I said, I'm going to let that slide. But you touched on the PSR a couple of times. Is this something, all clubs are having to deal with this on different levels? Is it frustrating that Villa can't seem to get it together?
Again, I'm not going to pretend that Villa have been perfect. Look, we have signed players that haven't worked. Evan Gesson, for example, came in last year, £30 million. He played for 6 months, wasn't great, got farmed off to Crystal Palace on loan, and we're looking to sell him in this window, for example. That's something we haven't done well. But seeing the likes of, like I've just said, Chelsea being able to spend whatever they like, that player doesn't work for 6 months, like Gesson, for example, doesn't matter, we'll just buy another one. That doesn't work, we'll just buy another one. It's frustrating. Saw a graphic today about Aston Villa's net spend over the last 5 seasons, right up there with the sort of lowest in the league. I'm not sure what more we can do, to be honest. It is super frustrating, but again, I'll go back to the manager. I think he's right up there with the best in the league, if not the best in the league, with the tools that he's been given. And he simply just improves players. The last sort of player that he was really, really after was Morgan Rogers. Signed him for £8 million plus add-ons, and he's just been sold for well over 100. So it shows what the bloke can do. And as long as he's at Aston Villa, I'm not massively concerned with anything that happens in the transfer window, really. I just think it's an exciting sort of period for Aston Villa fans, and one that I can't really remember for a little while in terms of sort of the overhaul that we're having in players. I can't really remember an overhaul like this since we got promoted, really, and we kind of had to do that then. So it's an exciting time to be a Villa supporter, and it's going to be a unique season. It might not click instantly. I don't really expect it to, because of all the new faces that we're seeing, but I'm sure we'll still be competing in those European places, which, with the constraints that we're under and the teams that we're competing with, is some achievement for me.
Yeah.
You don't worry though that he'll walk, Emery. You don't worry that he might get a bit
you're getting
fed
stuck
up.
into it here, and
But it's a genuine question, and it's not meant as a disrespect, that when you've got your best players leaving and you don't always have the funds, and he's having to, work really hard to make these players that are coming in, he's doing positive things with them, like you say. But is there ever a part of you that worries that if this continues, he could just get fed up?
I don't know. I don't know what Emery thinks, but he's got the whole support of the fan base. He's been so supported. Like the guy is an absolute king in Birmingham. He really, really is, and he hasn't necessarily had that everywhere he's been. I think sometimes clubs and managers just fit, and he is absolutely perfect. So I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. If Real Madrid came calling tomorrow, who knows? I don't think that's the kind of style of manager that Real Madrid would go for example. And he's got the absolute control of Aston Villa in every single sense. Like, he is the master of absolutely everything. Everything goes through him. So it's the perfect sort of setup for Villa and for him personally. So maybe, I'm never say never, but I doubt.
You're keeping your fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
I get you.
Max, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate having you on.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
There you go. I knew I'd touch a nerve with that Garnacho topic. I had it here, and I had Angelina Kelly written all over it. That I did.
You went fishing and I bit, and I'm not even sorry about it, because I just think that he is a very, very, very lucky boy to get this chance with Aston Villa, and I hope for his sake that he puts the work in this time.
Well, let's try and cheer you up then, because up next we're going to be talking about our club, Manchester United.
I don't know if that will cheer me up, to be honest.
You're listening to the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly on talkSPORT.
Commonwealth Games update on talkSPORT with BYD. Dare to dream with BYD and the Commonwealth Games.
You get the big money coming in from the Middle Eastern state. It comes in and you think to yourself, this is us now. Yeah. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to be spending this.
It hasn't happened that way.
Well, it can't happen like that because of the financial rules connected to football.
They put a cap on it at the wrong time for them.
Right. So they've got handcuffs. They've got all this dough, but they've got handcuffs and they can't do X, Y, and Z. But when players are going out for fees and stuff, then obviously that needs to be reinvested, and you need to obviously reinvest it wisely enough to be able to strengthen the side and be able to kick the side on. Eddie Howe's done a wonderful job getting them into the Champions League. They've won trophies now up there, doing absolutely fantastic stuff. Do you believe that there will be a point, maybe even now, maybe even it's before the season starts, is there a point now where he's thinking to himself, hang on a minute, this ain't for me, I'm going in a different direction?
Yeah, but because look, what players they attract now? What players can they attract? You look at it, can they attract because they got the money, could they attract Diomande? Probably not. Could they attract even could they attract Rashford from Man United? Could they attract him? Do you know what I mean? Could they even attract Trossard? Do you know what I mean? Like, couldn't they attract top players to go up to Newcastle and buy into what they're doing and say we're going places? I don't think Newcastle are going places. I think they've hit a ceiling because they can't get any better right now because there's that cap that's been over it. The others that got through, Man City, Arsenal, they're doing their thing. They're buying the top players. Can Newcastle get up to that point?
Do you fear for him this season?
Yeah. If Eddie Howe is keeping that ship afloat, Eddie Howe is.
Corinthian Casuals are a team in the Combined Counties League Premier Division South. Despite that, they're one of the most important clubs in world football. Here's why. The club was formed in 1939 as the result of a merger between Corinthians FC and Casuals FC. Now, Corinthians FC were founded in the late 1800s when the FA's top brass were sick of getting pumped by Scotland every time they played them. As a result, a man called Nicholas Lane Jackson set up an amateur side which would bring in the best players who could all play for the national side. And it worked. It wasn't long before England were dominating the international fixtures they played, and it was largely down to Corinthians. In fact, in 1894 and 1895, they played consecutive games where Corinthians provided the entire England 11. But the thing is, the players refused to play professional football. They didn't believe in it. They wanted to spread the values of sportsmanship, competition, and played for the love of the game. It also helped that most of the players were Oxbridge graduates who didn't need the money. But instead of entering the league and cup competitions, they played exhibition football and toured the world, bringing the beautiful game with them. And it was this which spread the game throughout the world and made it so popular. Most famously, in 1910, they travelled to Brazil. And the locals in Sao Paulo were so impressed, they started their own team under the same name. Yes, the same Corinthians who won the FIFA Club World Cup in 2021, one of the biggest football teams in Brazil. Now, they were global superstars, and despite not being professional, Corinthians drew in the crowds. Everybody wanted to play them, everybody wanted to watch them. So much so, they regularly played the winners of the FA Cup in what eventually became the Community Shield, winning most of the time. They actually inflicted Manchester United's worst defeat, 11-3, a record which still stands to this day. Now, fast forward to today, Corinthian Casuals still don't pay their staff or players. The ethos of sportsmanship is still at the heart of everything that they do. And even though they're a side in the lower leagues, if you make the trip to King George's Field in Tolworth just off the A3, you'll most likely bump into Brazilian Corinthians fans who often make the pilgrimage across the globe just to watch their founding team play.
This is the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan, and across from me is Angelina Kelly, as we're about to get into Our favourite topic, would you say that's fair?
Yes, definitely up there.
Yeah, up there. I mean, we've been on Inside Devils together for a long time now. I took a sabbatical. I took a little break, but I'm officially back. And we're talking Manchester United now. Let's talk about the business that they've done so far in terms of the players they've brought in. We touched a little bit on Tielemans and Santos as well. What's your thoughts on those two coming through the door, Ange?
I mean, two good signings. I think Tielemans, especially having that Premier League experience, I think is going to be really important. Two very different types of midfielders, I think, that can rotate and play in different ways.
Yeah.
I do think that Man United need one more midfielder who is quite physically dominant. And also, it's no disrespect to Tielemans, but, speaking to our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, he was always speaking about, there will be that one big signing and other players that will be coming in for squad depth when it comes to the midfield. Not that Tielemans isn't a big signing, but I think I was still expecting it would be a Baleba or Elliot Anderson, etc.
Kind of marquee vibe.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see what happens with that. But overall, I've been happy with it. Obviously, Carl Darlow coming in as a goalkeeper as well. I mean, we were not the biggest fans of Andre Onana and Alto Bayindir. Onana obviously out on loan already, just waiting for Bayindir now. Someone who's a little bit older, got that Premier League experience. I'm just upset about Danny Welbeck because we're waiting to see what's going to happen with this. And I'm sure we'll get into Chelsea a little bit later, but I really would have liked to have seen him back in Manchester. I know people that know Danny that speak so highly of him and his, affection for his hometown. It would be nice to have seen him back, I think, in a supporting role for Benjamin Šeško. I don't know about you, but the idea of just kind of having Šeško, I know that there are other players like Chido Obi Martin, etc., who could be filling in, but with such a big season and so many competitions at play here, you'd like to think United will have a good run. Wishful thinking in the Champions League, in the domestic cup competitions, having somebody like Welbeck to offer some support and some rotation for Šeško, I think would have been really nice. So, yeah, I'm a little bit sad about that. But the business that we have done, I think, has been good.
I'm with you on the Danny Welbeck thing. That's why I'm shocked that, we share the same opinion on that so passionately because I don't want to be too harsh on Šeško and I see so much positivity about him within the Man United fan base, and rightly in some cases, and he looks like he could be a fantastic striker. I'm still unconvinced at the moment that someone like Šeško, for example, could, and I don't know what Manchester United, their ambitions will be. I don't think they'll want to challenge. I mean, they'd want to challenge for a title. Whether they're in the position to is a different story. Is Šeško that guy that we can just rely on independently? And someone like a Welbeck would have struck that perfectly because he's clearly not going to start every week like we would want Šeško to, but he's there to support him. And like you say, he gets the dressing room, he gets the club. So that, in fact, I'm surprised, to be honest, that we haven't heard anything about Manchester United talking to him.
Yeah, definitely, and I was very much team Welbeck should have gone to the World Cup as well. I think he's a really likable character. I think he's a good footballer. I know that talkSPORT have spoken to him before, and the way that he is really taking care of himself because he is an OAP in football terms without trying to be disrespectful.
But he's in good nick.
He looks, he still is playing fantastic. So yeah, that. It would have been nice because I agree having the support for Šeško is important, but then we can't have players in every area of the pitch because you could argue for Manchester United that they need someone everywhere because defensively, I mean, there's some holes into it.
There is, and obviously Martinez goes down, doesn't he, in the final, and he is an injury liability. I feel when Man United fans,
too much now.
When we're watching him, we're wincing when he whether he gets challenged or commits to challenges. That is clearly a problem area. I'll be honest with you. I've always had my thoughts on Maguire. I think he is a good servant to the club, but I
can't rely on him forever.
No, you can't. And I'd be upset if we start the new season and Maguire's still in the starting lineup. That's my thoughts on it. The wing backs need addressing as well. The left back. So where do you start? Do you go for Premier League proven with these players, or would you be happy to get anyone through the door that could potentially start for them?
It's a tough one. I think with the centre backs, the pairing is so important, and I think you look at somebody like Lenny Yoro, who has looked nervy at times but has got potential. Aidan Heaven, I think when called upon, has been really good, but they're still both so young, and you can't put all of it on them. I would prefer somebody Premier League proven, to be completely honest, because again, you've got Matthijs de Ligt. He's still not going to be ready for the beginning of the season. There are issues with the full-backs. Again, I would stick to that model of trying to get Premier League proven players. I don't know about you, I was watching Jed Spence at the World Cup, and I didn't think that I would say this. And speaking to a lot of England fans in America and Mexico, they were kind of holding their hands up, being like, you know what, he's actually performed better than we expected.
He was electric.
And you look at Luke Shaw, who had a brilliant season and managed to stay fit, but that's in a season where United are playing such a small volume of games. You cannot rely on Luke Shaw, as wonderful as he is on his day. Having someone like Jed Spence in, I think, would be a really good option. Diogo Dalot, I know with the fans, a lot of people like him. A lot of people like his personality. Is he good enough? If Manchester United want to be challenging for a Premier League title, is Dalot the guy at right back I can see? No, I don't think he's good enough for this next stage that United will hopefully be moving on to. So, yeah, I think when it comes to the defence, if you can get Premier League proven, I think that's always a positive.
Yeah, I think Dalot, if you want to get to a place where you can challenge for titles, the squad depth has to be there. So if Dalot's happy to dip in and dip out, then that's absolutely fine.
Why not?
Yeah, but in terms of starting, I completely agree with you. We've got to talk about Marcus Rashford because he's back. There's rumours he may even be taking the number 11 shirt, which indicates...
I mean, Joshua Zirkzee is...
Yeah.
In a bit, anyway. You know, probably a lovely lad, but it's never worked, has it? So he shouldn't really have that shirt.
No, well, exactly, yeah. And I'm with you on that. In terms of Rashford, there is we talk about baggage in the transfer window and what comes with players. Him and Manchester United have so much baggage. Are you in the camp, because it is split into two camps with Manchester United fans, let's have him back, let's click the reset button and there's a player in there, or the ship has sailed? Where are you with it?
It's so hard, isn't it? For me personally, I don't think there should be a way back for Marcus Rashford and Manchester United. I understand that if he's a Manchester United player, he's going to be there. There's nothing you can do about it. But I think that there's going to have to be a lot that happens. If Marcus Rashford is back, if he gets the number 11 shirt, etc., the fans will back him. Manchester United have got some of the best fans in the world. However, people can't forget what happened, that there were times that he let the fan base down with some of the behaviour that we were hearing about off the pitch. I think there would need to be a little bit of accountability with that, in my opinion, for him to accept that he may have let some of the fans down and he wants to make it right. One thing I like about Rashford, when he spoke to Henry Winter about wanting a new chapter, he said, I'm always going to be a Red. You're never going to catch me speaking negatively about the club. And he hasn't done that. Yeah. So there's definitely credit in the bank there for Rashford. I just think for me, you know, you don't go back to an ex kind of thing. And I feel for him with the Barcelona situation that they've clearly gone in a completely different direction. You know, bringing Anthony Gordon in, paying all that money, the wages that he reportedly will be on, you know, are not going to be that dissimilar to Marcus Rashford. So you'd be stung by that if you were him. I think with my England cap on, I wouldn't want him at Manchester United because I don't think he's going to be guaranteed a starting place. Is he better than Cunha? I'm not too sure. No. Would he be playing instead of Benjamin Šeško up front? I don't think so. You look at the number 10 options, there are other options. I mean, people are excited to see Patrick Dorgu at left wing. Yeah. So not saying that he's better than Marcus Rashford, we'll have to see. But there are a couple of people in the queue and, you know, it depends what kind of relationship he'd have with Michael Carrick. I think he would put an arm around the shoulder with him. But I just think, for me, it's for Marcus Rashford's future, especially with England, because he was brilliant at the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think a life away from Manchester United's important.
Oh, do you know what? I agree with every word you said there. I really do. I think there's something in terms of the mentality of a player as well. He was in Barcelona and he talked about that next chapter and he was very much, I'm sure, of the mindset that the next chapter had begun. So to then cut that chapter short and be back at Manchester United, I feel... Whether he's physically ready to be that player that he once was, I'm not so sure. But mentally, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Rashford, but yeah, mentally, I'm not sure you can go back there and say, right, I need to rebuild and start from scratch. He's not the boy that burst onto the scene anymore. He's coming back and having to prove himself immediately. So yeah, it is an interesting one. In a word, with all that being said, does he start for Manchester United in the new season?
No.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Right, I have to tell you, the sun is shining, so make sure to grab a pint of So Good Lager from talkSPORT. And meantime, it's available in all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports bars across the country. Find out where your nearest pub is at talksport.com/so good. 18 plus, always drink responsibly. And next up, we'll switch to the blue side of Manchester and look at City.
It's boxing. I said it in the interview the other day. It's heavyweight boxing. He got caught by a fighter who's had 20 knockouts. Yes, albeit Prenga wasn't a hugely recognised name prior to that, but you don't get 20 knockouts, without being able to punch. And that's boxing. And the reality is, as AJ showed, it's getting back up from that and building your way back into the fight and finishing it the way he did. Did I expect that in the first round? No. But he showed his heart, his determination, and everything that's got him to this point in the sport.
Are you into boxing conspiracies?
No, I mean, is Simon Jordan under the desk somewhere?
He's on holiday this week, mate. But I've got his tweet here.
Well, yeah, you got Simon Jordan. You got the other guy.
Oh yeah, well, Paulie Malignaggi was on a little earlier on as well. He said a very similar thing. So basically, Simon wrote on X, I'm sure people have seen this, that he wasn't having the fight and that something was not quite right, as it was designed to rinse the maximum amount of money. Do you agree?
I mean, did he confirm any more? Has he spoken about it verbally?
I've not personally spoken to him, mate. I don't like to put words in people's mouths off the back of social media. No, I've not spoken to him about it, mate. I'm just going off what he's written on social media.
From what he's written, what he's suggesting is that the fight was in some way, I guess what he's trying to say is fixed.
Yeah.
So you think AJ got knocked down twice to then get back up and finish it like that? I mean, I was actually getting on with Simon Jordan for quite a while.
You are listening to the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. Of course, the Commonwealth Games are running right now, running right alongside this show, and we're going to get another update with Georgie Heath. How are things getting on, Georgie?
Yeah, plenty of action. The big one, the talking point tonight, was in the pool with Adam Ramsey-Peaty looking to fight back after that bronze the other day. There was a lot of talk about his response to that. Well, today he came back in the 100-metre breaststroke final, but it was again a bronze for him. Gold going to Sam Williamson from Australia, so that's 2 golds for him, and then silver to South Africa's Michael Hooley, so that's a double bronze for Ramsey-Peaty. We've also had a gold for England's Brock Whiston in the women's 100-metre SB8 breaststroke, and a bronze in the same one to England's Iona Winifred, who is only 15, which is quite a terrifying prospect. In the athletics, Sophie Hahn, she regained the gold that she lost to Livy Breen just 4 years ago, so she was very happy with that one in the T38 100 metres. And in the boxing at the moment, Scotland's Sonny Kerr has just got underway in the men's 70 kilograms round of 16 against Kenya's Boniface Maina. So all action at the Commonwealth Games tonight, and I'll continue to bring it to you throughout the night.
Commonwealth Games update on talkSPORT with BYD. Dare to dream with BYD and the Commonwealth Games.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Georgie. Appreciate that. And we spoke about the red side of Manchester before the break, and we're going to speak about the blue side now with Stephen McInerney from the esteemed company Fan Channel. How are you, Stephen? You okay? Are you over the Pep departure yet? Or, the England World Cup that distracted you? How are you feeling at the moment?
Nothing could distract me from that, mate. So I'll never be over it. It's like losing a loved one, unfortunately, but I'll survive.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Things are still looking rosy. However, the first question I've got here isn't so rosy. Rodri, mate. Rodri, there's links that he might be going to Real Madrid. How are you feeling? I mean, can you lose the core components of Pep Guardiola? It's a loaded question. Pep Guardiola and Rodri virtually in the same window.
It's more than that, mate, as well. Bernardo Silva, John Stones, Nathan Ake, all that treble winning experience. There's no sugarcoating it. It'd be a devastating loss. He is, in my opinion, maybe the one guy who could sort of single-handedly smooth that transition from Guardiola to Maresca, because the guy just wins. You see what he does everywhere, in every competition he plays. He's absolutely immense and wins player of the tournament. Every time he wins something for Spain, and went on a 70-odd game unbeaten streak at one point for Man City. He's utterly pivotal, and he's still the best midfielder in world football. So yeah, there's no way to pay it other than it'd be an absolutely ridiculously huge blow to not just Manchester City but life after Guardiola at Manchester City.
Do Man City, in your opinion, will you be disappointed if he goes in the club? I know sometimes it's the player that pushes for these things, but do they have to do everything they can to keep a player like Rodri with everything that you've just said?
I just wouldn't sell him. That'd be my choice. I don't particularly like Madrid, but I understand why a boy born in Madrid from Spain would want to play for them. I get that, but look, ultimately the guy will make generational wealth if he just hangs around for another 10 months anyway. He'll sign on a free transfer, probably pocket about 30 million quid directly as a free transfer anyway. And I think his value to Manchester City on the pitch is way more than any number on a spreadsheet. So we can't lose him because, as I was saying before, he's just so important to City's success. And I do hand on heart believe that if he stays, we are more likely, probably still favourites to win the Premier League again. I think Rodri is the difference. And I felt if he was here all last season, we probably wouldn't won it too, because we went close in the end with Arsenal. So I just think you need him, and you tell Real Madrid to either put an absurd amount in. I'm talking over 100 million because they've done it before.
Yeah.
He did Hazard for a year left. Kane was 100 million when he went to Bayern for a year left. He's got several years left in him at La Liga's pace. So, yeah, you tell him to dig deep or just do one, because we need him more than we need the money.
Stephen, me and Angelina were talking about Manchester United's business and kind of both alluded to the fact that we want that marquee signing, right? And you have that marquee signing in Elliot Anderson. We've been distracted by the World Cup and about England, but just how excited are you about having someone of that calibre at your club?
Yeah, really excited. I think he's a cracking player. Of course, the money's absurd, but that's just football in 2026. Everything in life is twice as expensive. Never mind just football. So, yeah, I understand the fee's ridiculous, but as a player, given that we just lost Bernardo Silva, this Duracell bunny of a footballer who never stops running, and just way more than that, of course, a genius on the ball as well. But we needed a replacement, and when you look around what the Premier League has got, I think Elliot Anderson is as safe as you can get as a Bernardo Silva replacement, given the fact that he's remarkably good on the ball, the most passes completed of any player in the Premier League last season, the most touches, the most duels won, defensively really good, the energy, the guy never stops running, and the fact that everywhere he goes, be it on loan as a youngster, he was Bristol, I think it was, where he stepped up, he was absolutely brilliant, and became, Forest's best player, immediately got in the England team, came absolutely key there. He just clearly learns. He clearly steps up and can handle the challenge. So I've got no doubt whatsoever that he'll be great for City. Hopefully alongside Rodri.
Yes, fingers crossed for you guys if you can keep Rodri. I mean, if he does go, Enzo Fernandez has been linked. What type of midfielder would you want as a replacement? If hopefully it won't come to this, but if it did, because is someone like Enzo Fernandez, is he good enough? We know that Ayoub Boadi from Lille has been linked, very talented, but maybe a bit young to go straight into a Man City starting 11.
Boadi, it would be brilliant, but he feels like the one to take over from Rodri a year or two from now, not necessarily straight away, with all the talent that he's got. Yeah, Enzo Fernandez, cracking player. I don't particularly... I find him irritating, but that's just... He's got very... I put that politely as well, because I don't know it's past the watershed yet, but I also don't get sued. But I don't particularly like the guy. And I've never seen City, my club, sign a player that I dislike, so I don't want to have to deal with that. But for me, the obvious tap-in, and given that he's available, is, to me, the second best controller in the Premier League is Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle. I think he's a cracking player. I think he's obviously available for the right price. Loads of experience, Champions League. I think you'd love to play for Manchester City, and I think we could afford it if Rodri went. So I would immediately be trying to hijack that with Arsenal. Like, doesn't mean it'll happen, but that would cushion the blow, because I think if you lose Rodri, no one in the Premier League has him, so obviously no one's benefiting from that. But if you bring Bruno Guimaraes alongside Elliot Anderson, I think that's still the best midfielder in the Premier League. So at that point, it wouldn't make up for the blow of losing a player as good as Rodri. He's a once in a lifetime kind of player. But I still think Bruno Guimaraes is a world-class player. So I think at that point, I'd be happy. So hopefully City do it. If you listen to City, make it happen.
Interesting you talk about Bruno Guimaraes, because obviously not the natural, but the link that we're hearing about is Arsenal. And that Arsenal are the favourites to sign them. Do you, I'll just ask you this, it's not necessarily transfer related, it kind of is. Do you think that you're a more attractive prospect still than Arsenal?
I couldn't answer that. It depends on the individual, doesn't it? Because City were... on paper, for most people, a more attractive prospects after the treble when Declan Rice went to Arsenal, because what they see achieved with Guardiola there it comes entirely down to the player's preference, doesn't it? Where they want to live, what they want to do. But I think you'd be stupid, or anyone would be stupid, to rule out City as a proposition, because City have been exceptionally well run for an awful long time now, and we were winning Premier League titles even before Pep Guardiola. So I can totally get the appeal for choosing Arsenal. I can also get the appeal for choosing Manchester City. So I don't know how much weight City carry in the post-Guardiola world. We'll have to somehow stride into that darkness as fans collectively. But we will see in time. And ultimately, players, they get paid very well, to play for Manchester City. And City probably will carry on winning things. To what extent, I don't know. But I think they'll be happy at Manchester City, put it that way. So we'll see.
Well, you talked about a few outgoings just at the top of this segment there with John Stones and Bernardo Silva. What we're hearing now, James Trafford, he looks like he could be heading to Leeds. How do you feel? Does that feel like a loss for you guys?
For me personally, I was watching for the academy side a long time ago, and I've always been a big fan of James Trafford. I remember seeing when he was about 16, thinking this guy could be City's number one day, and I still feel that as well. It's a big divide between City fans. It's Donnarumma or Trafford. Everyone's got a camp to choose, and I understand the merits of both. Donnarumma is a world-class goalkeeper. I think Trafford's probably more well-rounded as a Manchester City goelkeeper, in terms of he's better on the ball and he's better sweeper keeper and maybe a little bit less flappy on crosses than Donnarumma is. But Donnarumma is a brilliant player, so he's an elite level goalkeeper, so I can't complain too much. I'm attached to Trafford because he was an academy player.
Yeah.
Because I witnessed him, what's his journey, so to speak. And I felt a bit sorry for him because he obviously was under the impression that he was coming back to be, if not number one immediately, eventually. But that had changed when Donnarumma joined. And I think he'll reach the very top. He'll be England number one. He'll be a top quality goalkeeper. And I really rate James Trafford. I think he's going to be brilliant. I'm happy that he gets a good move. But for me personally, and once again, it's very divided amongst City fans.
Yeah.
For me, it's a bit of a loss. Don't forget, we won 2 trophies last season, and he was the goalkeeper for both of them. And I think our best football came in the cup competition. So make of that what you will.
Before I let you go, Stephen, just in a sentence, you've talked about Pep leaving. Rodri might be leaving. I don't know, the bit of darkness you alluded to there as well. Are you going to be in for the Premier League next season? Do you think you'll still be title challengers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
The confidence all of a sudden came surging back through then I saw that. Stephen, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that.
My pleasure, mate. Cheers.
And what a shock. Chelsea have certainly been busy in the transfer market, haven't they? Yeah. We'll take a look at them next.
I don't know if you've seen Simon Jordan's tweets. We know Simon Jordan loves his boxing. He's very knowledgeable on boxing as well. But he wrote a tweet after the fight. A lot of people agreed with him as well. He said, "I'm not having that. Dropped twice, sets the tempo. How's that? Playing a totally different second round. Something not quite right. All designed to rinse maximum amount of money." Firstly, were you aware of that tweet?
Yes, I was, mate. I spoke to Simon about it after, actually.
Okay, well, what did he say? What did you say? How did that conversation pan out?
Well, so the conversation went like he said, like I said live on the live comms, the way that, so if you know as a fighter, it's instinctive. He had Anthony Joshua hurt after 20 seconds. Joshua barely got through the round. He survived. He walked back to the corner on his heels. He walked out for the second round, with the legs still very wary as well, very dodgy as well. And as a fighter, Christian Prenga then instinctively should jump on him and know the history of Anthony Joshua and how it takes him a while to recover and jump on him and say, right, this is my big opportunity. This is my ticket into the big time. No one knows who I am, but everyone's going to know it's going to be one of the biggest shocks in heavyweight boxing history. And he didn't. It was a very strange,
didn't he?
Tactics, because I think he was actually waiting for that big shot. He was waiting. He saw that Joshua was coming forward and he was making fundamental mistakes when he was throwing shots. He was leaving his chin up in the air, hands down by his waist. It was a weird performance from Joshua, but even strange.
Here are some of the best off-camera anecdotes from recent years at the Ryder Cup. As caddy Billy Foster went to relieve himself at the Belfry, he noticed only one of the 2 cubicles had toilet paper. Shortly after he'd sat down, Tiger Woods went into the empty cubicle and realised his mistake all too late. So Foster took some paper, reached under the cubicle with a rescue offering, and as Tiger went to take it, Foster uttered the words, "Europe, one up." Fast forward 10 years to the miraculous Medina. Roy McIlroy overslept and was in danger of missing his Sunday tee time. Thankfully, travel organiser Erica Stoll sorted him a police
I just love that pumped up music they play, because there's a lull in the break, isn't there? And then they just get us right back into it. And you're not feeling very well at the moment either, Ange, are you?
No, I've got post World Cup cold, but you just got to power through. But this is talkSPORT. We always have the energy up, even when I'm doing early sports breakfast, which I'll be doing later on in the week. Show at 5 a.m. We still bring that energy because. And one thing I learned from the World Cup is just how global talkSPORT are. That there were people coming up to us saying, we listen to it all day, we're watching on YouTube, etc. So you never know what time zone you're speaking to. So you've always got to bring the energy.
Well, wherever you are in the world right now, you are listening to talkSPORT and the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. I said we had a jam-packed show. And we do. We're rattling through all the clubs here. And we're going to talk about Chelsea now. We talked a little bit about Danny Welbeck, about the Chelsea perspective, about the Man United perspective as well. And we spoke with Ben Jacobs about this too. But Jordan Henderson, what are your thoughts, Ange, on getting a player like that where it's clear when he got picked for England, it's clear why they're taking him immediately, which immediately tells you about where he is in his career ability-wise right now. I think the answer lies in that statement. I mean, where are you with Chelsea being linked? Do you think that's a good piece of business to get Henderson?
I think it is. I heard Rory Jennings speaking on Drive saying, we don't need the whole, 2018 England team, which I get where he's coming from. But I think with Jordan Henderson, one thing that I thought was really telling was the England podcast that was going on just before the World Cup and during that. It was Jude Bellingham and Morgan Rogers, who could be Jordan Henderson's, new teammate. Yeah. They were speaking about Jordan Henderson and waxing lyrical about him, saying how brilliant he is. Morgan Rogers saying that he's, arguably the best person that he's met in football, not just personality, but the way he is on the pitch. And I think that Chelsea could really, do with somebody like that. And I think one big talking point was the discipline issues, shall we say, with Chelsea. Yeah. And I think bringing in experienced older heads like Danny Welbeck, like Jordan Henderson is going to be really important. You can tell what Xabi Alonso's trying to do with those signings, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's get Luis Beneventi, one of the best names in the business, I have to say, from the Chelsea Echo, to talk about this a bit more. How are you, Luis? You okay?
You got the second bit right. The first bit you didn't. It's Louis.
Louis. Oh, apologies, Louis.
Sorry, but thank you for saying it's a good name. I appreciate it.
Do you know what it is? It's the razzle-dazzle of your surname that absolutely blinded me there. It is.
You got the second bit right, which is not something that people do very often. So credit to you.
Appreciate that. We were just talking about Henderson. What's your initial thoughts? Because you're only linked at the moment. But what are your initial thoughts on a signing like that?
I was actually, ironically, just talked to my dad about it, and I'm vehemently against it. Probably isn't the right word, but it just doesn't feel like a particularly intelligent move. If you're going to get somebody who can do what Jordan Henderson was doing during the World Cup, then just get someone in the coaching staff. I think that's a space which could be used for a player. And I think the only argument that people have really been making was, we didn't get Xhaka, maybe he could do that role. I think Xhaka's got more to his game than Jordan Henderson. If we're talking about Jordan Henderson about 3 or 4 years ago, then different conversation. But I don't think he's exactly what we need. Yeah, he's a free transfer though, so there's not really any risk to it.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point. That there's no risk there. Again, links with Welbeck as well. Does that one make more sense to you because of the season he's coming off the back of?
Exactly that. Danny Welbeck this season has scored a lot of goals. And he's proven that he still can do it in the Premier League. And I look at him as a player, if you've got João Pedro starting the games, which is probably what it's going to be, to have someone like that who can come off the bench, who has a proven goal scoring record now, not 5 years ago, I think is a big benefit. And he definitely adds more to the squad. He adds a lot of experience there as well, but is still performing, as it were. Jordan Henderson played a decent amount at Brentford, but I mean, the fact that Brentford is kind of going, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it, you can go crack on now. I'm a little bit like, that makes me a little bit wary.
Yeah, I got you. Do you know, I saw this stat, more of a fact, that Michael Carrick is the second longest serving manager of the top 6 clubs at the moment. it's just such a mind-blowing stat, and it just reminded me that Alonso is your gaffer, and there's talk about it, yes, but maybe not as much talk as there should be. What are your thoughts on him and the prospects of him and his new identity as your manager going into this season?
From what we've seen over the past few days, and I was speaking to Sam and Ben about this last week, he seems to be having more of an impact on this squad. And I mean, we can already see it with the signings that we're talking about. I mean, just talking about Jordan Henderson, Danny Welbeck, John Stones as players that have been linked. You know, it kind of showcases that there is a shift in terms of how Chelsea are looking to operate, and clearly he has a big part in that. And I think having someone with his footballing intelligence and, you know, what he's already done as a coach, I think really does showcase, alongside that shift in transfer policy, a different approach to Chelsea, and it actually makes me quite excited. Time will tell, because it has only been a couple of weeks where all of that has kind of been moving in that direction. But realistically, there is a real opportunity where Chelsea can kick on, get into a really strong position, and they have a coach who I think, realistically, comparatively to previous coaches, especially Liam Rosenior, is a very elite manager.
Oh, Liam Rosenior, you had to get a little dig in there, didn't you? I mean,
Listen, you would as well if you had to go and watch that.
Hey, I'm just getting over Ruben Amorim, don't you worry. I mean, you talk about, you talk about Chelsea though and Alonso, and I completely understand what you're saying, that Chelsea are very clearly changing their transfer strategy away from, only buying these young players. I think that, Danny Welbeck wouldn't have been, of interest before this summer under the Clear Lake ownership. So whatever Alonso is saying, clearly is working, or we hope it's working. And I think with Welbeck, I was looking into it, and he did actually come up against Alonso. I mean, this is maybe showing Welbeck's age, back in 2013 in a round of 16 Champions League game between Man United and Real Madrid. And Sir Alex Ferguson dropped Rooney in favour of Welbeck and spoke about, Danny Welbeck being able to kind of stifle Alonso and his control of the game, and that tactically he was able to do that. So I think that kind of tactical intelligence could be really useful to Alonso, especially when he's at a new club. He's probably going to change the formation. But with all of this said and done, what should Chelsea's aim be? Can you even think of an aim at this point? You just hope it's not as bad as last season.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the fact that this morning when I woke up, I wasn't sure we were going to be linked with Danny Welbeck and Jordan Henderson. So I'm just trying to get through to the end of the day before we get linked to another 35-year-old. But, I mean, for me, realistically, if we look at the signings that Chelsea have already made, Maxis Lacroix, Morgan Rogers, I think realistically, and Palestra as well, completely forgot about him. I think that Chelsea, with one game a week, should he be able to imprint his identity on the team, which we don't know what it's going to be yet. It could be a 4 at the back, which is what he's been playing a lot in pre-season, or it could turn into a 3. As you mentioned Amorim earlier, I'm hoping that if he does play a 3, we're going to have that steal in midfield, which isn't Jordan Henderson.
Oh, come on.
Really
I think you've been a bit harsh on Henderson. I mean, I was talking just before you came on that Morgan Rogers and Jude Bellingham, they were saying what a great person he is. Surely them speaking about him, speaking so highly about him on the pitch as well as off the pitch, does that not sway you a little bit?
Not really.
No. I don't care what Jude Bellingham's got to say on Morgan Rogers.
Listen, credit to them. They can really get on with him. I've got a guy that I go down the pub with, and he's 40 and he's great in midfield. But he's not going to play every week. Yeah, exactly. But so, look, I look at him like I think he can definitely add things to this team. I'm not disputing that. I think he's definitely someone who can add a big mental factor, and I think coming off the bench, he's someone who could make a difference. Just as with the Ruben Amorim point, if you play a double pivot, I think there's only really been one very, very successful team at doing that in the Premier League, and that was Conte's Chelsea. And you had N'Golo Kante and Nemanja Matic in their prime. If you have to play players who aren't quite up to it, maybe don't have the legs in a double pivot, that's going to leave you very open. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, well, realistically, I'd like to see someone signed there. Obviously, there's talk of Alex Scott.
Yeah.
And there could be other players as well. But someone who can make a tangible difference straight away in the first team on the pitch every week. Jordan Henderson is a good player, just not as someone who can start every week for Chelsea, I don't think.
What do you think is there a problem area for Chelsea? Because Chelsea are notoriously busy in recent history, extremely busy in the transfer window, incomings and outgoings. You sell really well, you guys. What's the area that, in your opinion, you need to address that you haven't already?
I mean, I think goalkeeper is a fairly obvious one.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Robert Sanchez. I mean, he's had a better season last year, but the standards for Chelsea to really try and achieve what they want to, Robert Sanchez isn't the guy to do that. Mike Penders is coming through, but I would like to see an elite keeper come in who can really make a difference straight away. Who can, again, we're talking about people that can come in, hit the ground running, and maybe help these younger players' development. I mean, there's talk of Diogo Costa, obviously been fantastic in Portugal. Very, very good goalkeeper, has seniority. I look at him and kind of, well, there's somebody there who could teach Mike Penders to do certain things, almost like we had with the Czech and Courtois season.
Yeah.
So that's a big area for me. Left wing back is a massive one now that Cucurella's gone. There's talk of Pep Chavara from Rayo Vallecano. Looks like a very, very good player. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like a lot of people on Twitter that I've watched him every week and watched the Liga. But he looks good from what I have seen, and he's somebody which I think Chelsea are looking at to really make a difference. I'd very much like to see Lewis Hall there. That would be my dream window.
Oh yeah.
And then then that other spot in midfield next to Moises Caicedo. I think if Enzo Fernandez goes, which he may do, and realistically, I'm not sure in terms of in that to midfield, that's really a position for him. I'd like to see Chelsea bring someone in again that can make a difference straight off the bat, who has very good quality. I mean, for example, if we're talking about Jordan Henderson, like if we were to, this is just me spitballing and putting ideas in the air. But if Chelsea were to sell Enzo Fernandez and then I don't know, go all in for Adam Wharton, and then you had Jordan Henderson, for me that's kind of case going, okay, well, that is a great example of you'd have Jordan Henderson in the squad.
You'll tolerate him a bit more then.
People. Well, tolerate's a strong word. I'm not saying that look, he'd be a good signing for depth and somebody who can help the squad, but he's not the person who's going to make the categorical difference. Chelsea still need to sign somebody there. So if they were to go in and sign an Adam Wharton and go, right, here's Jordan Henderson, you can teach him certain tricks of the trade, things that need to be done. How do you play this position? What do you do better? And then eventually he'll fade into the ether like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then you'll have Adam Wharton ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at that going, well, I think that could be a very good opportunity for Chelsea. But again, I'm just putting ideas into the ether.
No,
if sport directors listening, I'm here, lad.
I get it. You got to manifest it. I was going to go for the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi vibe, but you went for the Star Wars reference, so I like it. Just before I let you go, in a sentence, with everything that you've just said, you're in a bit of no man's land in terms of what your ambition might be next season. Do you think that you will be in for the Premier League? Do you think that you'll be challenging?
No.
Ooh.
Close the gap. For me, it's very much a case of I'd like to see us within 10 points at the top of the table.
There you go. Mr. Beneventi. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Right, okay, next up we'll turn our attention to the Championship as we look at West Ham and what they need to do for an instant return to the Premier League. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan, and Angelina Kelly. There it is again, the upbeat music getting us in the mood. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders with Angelina Kelly and myself, your host Ryan Scott Douglas. We have really been rattling through these clubs. I've been happy. It started off at World Cup chat. I apologise for it. I said we're getting some transfers, and that we have, Ange. And we're going to talk about West Ham now. And we've got Dan Lawless here from West Ham Fan TV. Dan, how are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, not too bad, guys. Not too bad. Hope you're both well. Looking forward to the season starting.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Another good name, I have to say. We've got some great names here. Dan Lawless. I mean, that's an unbelievable. That's top tier. Let's talk about that optimism that you've got there because, I mean, the first question I've got in front of me, I don't want to kill the vibe, but Fernandes and Somerville, big departures, mate.
Yeah, they are big departures. And look, we got big money for them. So we kind of expected that they would go.
Yeah.
Obviously, a bit disappointing to see another player go to Spurs, but we got top money for him. And I can't grumble on that. Same with Somerville, who's gone to Saudi. So, yeah, listen, that is going to help us massively this summer. So I can't grumble about those departures as much as I'd love to have kept them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you like you say, you've raised the funds. Is there a fear, a natural fear for you that there's some might be some more departures within that squad that some people might go because naturally the situation you're in that you're not out in the Premier League anymore. Does that kind of worry linger in the back of your mind?
No, I mean, I think sorting out Bowen's future was massive. So him really dedicating his future to West Ham next season was massive. Like, he's the one that we all really wanted to keep. So knowing that his future sorted, there's a couple of other players there like Mavropanos, that we really want to keep. There's someone like Souček who's good for leadership, but a lot of these other players I'm not really wedded to. Like Diouf is a bright prospect, and he could be the next most likely to go, but he was poor second half of the season, so I'm not too fussed. Wan-Bissaka dropped off a cliff last season as well. So there's no one else that I'm really would be gutted if we lost, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty calm about what we're going to keep, and they said they want to keep pretty much the rest of those players that we had last season. So I think they'll stay.
Yeah, and I mentioned Fernandes and Somerville. This is just purely out of interest. This isn't even in front of me. But was there one over the other that you were more disappointed that had left out, or were they both equally as disappointing? What was the consensus there within you and the fan base?
Yeah, I think with Fernandes, there seemed to be early on a sort of resignation of him going, especially if we'd left. Like, I think out of Somerville and Fernandes, like Fernandes had a lot of upside going forward, a lot of potential, high ceiling. But I think for me, Somerville is the one that I was most disappointed because, he was just starting to finally find the goals. I think his all-round game was excellent for us. It was just putting the ball in the back of the net, and he'd finally found that. And he was that outlet that we needed. He was that burst of pace. And like without Somerville, that leaves a massive hole in the team that we need to now fill. So for me, Somerville was the one that I was really disappointed to see go. And for him to go to Saudi, which I get it, money, I think it's a loss for European football.
Yeah. No, I get it. I completely get it, mate. And Jared Bowen, you mentioned, of course, that's massive news for you guys that he signed a contract. But in terms of what else you can bring in now, what would you? Is it just immediately looking at Fernandes and Somerville and the fact that they've lost and replacing them, or is there any other problem areas for you guys that you think you need to address?
Yeah, I'm seeing a few holes in this team now, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't slightly concerned. Look, we no preseason's mainly about fitness, but I watched that Rangers game and I see a team devoid of creativity. I'm still not sold on our current striking options with Pablo and Castellanos. I'm not confident in them being able to put away the goals that we need. Centre back wise, obviously Disasi was massive for us last season, and it looks like it's going to be hard to get him to come back. So it leaves us with Mavropanos and then Kilman, who we all had doubts about last season. He's been really poor, and then no backups. So we need centre backs. We need that replacement for Somerville. We need some cover for Bowen because we ran him into the ground last season. Like 46 games, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So we need a deep squad. But yeah, really, I still want a striker. Even though we've got 2 strikers, Fulkrug is gone. We need goals and we need pace in the team for sure, and something in midfield. We need quite a bit, and we haven't even started yet. That's where I'm worried, to be honest with you. We've got a lot to do.
Yeah, and you talk about all that business that needs to happen for West Ham, whether it's you guys going straight back up, which I'm sure many fans are hoping for, or just to kind of steady the ship. But who is actually making the signings for West Ham at the moment? Because we've seen a lot of change with the powers that be. Is it mainly Nuno Espirito Santo, or is it Mark Noble, the sporting director, as well? And how have you found it all?
Yeah, so we've been in this weird transitional situation where, Daniel Kretinsky, who was the second majority shareholder, is in the process of becoming the majority shareholder and taking over, with Sullivan stepping down. And that is brought changes of structure behind the scenes. Brought in this guy, Niels Coppin, who I think was, I can't say Rangers or Celtic, the sporting director before, but we've announced him like weeks ago, but he hasn't actually started. So Nuno, I think, is the boss when it comes to transfers. He has the final say, but this guy is supposed to be coming and bringing these data and analysis and all of that stuff, but he hasn't really got going yet. And then we've just signed, I think, someone from Southampton to bring in some sort of championship know-how. But it's, we're nearly in August. We start in just over 2 weeks. We start our first game against Burnley. That's not including the cup game. So we've really got to get a move on, and these guys that we're bringing in have to start to get the ground, hit the ground running and start to do some deals, because it don't seem like we're close to signing anyone yet.
So that's about what you should do. Are you worried it won't get done? I'm getting that nervousness from you. Are you worried that maybe you don't get all the signings that you need to come straight back up?
I think we, like, as it stands, so if with the team we have now, I think there's enough to just hit the playoffs, right? I think we get enough signings to make a go of trying to get automatic promotion. I don't want to leave it in jeopardy. I want us to get all those positions sealed up, so we are leading the charge for the title. I want to win the championship, and right now it feels like we're quite a ways behind. So I am concerned that we're not going to cover all those points. We're going to have to hope some of these young players step up. And I think it's a great opportunity for it, but I don't want to rely on the young players. I want to make sure we're covered. So I am worried at the moment that we're leaving it up to fate a little bit too much when it comes to like going through the playoffs. And we've gone to playoffs before and lost, and it's a horrible feeling. We have to go up this season. We absolutely have to.
Oof. Well, I'm gonna, before I let you go, I'm gonna pin you down then. With all that being said, do you stay up? I mean, do you go up?
Stay up?
Do you go stay up?
Brutal.
Do you go up?
It's not looking that big.
I know. It's that wave of negativity I was getting from you. You were worrying me a little bit. I'm thinking, gosh, title contenders, or are you going down? No, do you go up?
As concerned as I am at the moment, I do think, we've got just over a month left to get all the business done. Keeping those quality players, I think, was huge. I think we get enough in when it comes to transfers to go straight back up. And I think we'll get some good loans from the Premier League, and we'll get that automatic promotion. I just don't want to leave it too much to chance. And, I want to cruise it.
Yeah. I've got you, Dan. Let's hope you stay up then, eh? Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate having you on.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Angelina, that's big news for West Ham, isn't it? I mean, in terms of keeping Jared Bowen, a player of his calibre.
Yeah, definitely. And, you wonder how much his father-in-law had a role in that. You're speaking to West Ham fans out at the World Cup, and speaking to them about Bowen and the relief and the, little jokes of maybe, where else could he have gone with the family ties that he has. But I think having somebody like him, especially with all the things that have been going on with the powers that be at West Ham, to have somebody like Bowen sit there and say, no, I want to be here, I believe in this, I think gives a lot of relief to players. I would imagine you want somebody like Bowen to stick around and to say, I'm going to get involved here and I'm going to make sure that this club comes back up. I think it's noble of him.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the manager, Nuno? Do you think he's the guy? I mean, he's not quite found his home yet. Do you think he is the guy, though, for West Ham to get them back into the Premier League?
I mean, I think that you've got to give it a go. Again, he wants to stay with this project. He wants to try and bring West Ham back up. I think that your best bet is to stick with him. He understands the club a little bit more. He's obviously gone through this heartache of going down, and how close it came towards the end, and the role that Spurs were playing in it, etc. Could they have affected it? It's hard, but I think if he wants to stick around, and if the powers that be believe that he can do it, I think he deserves a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And now we're going to talk. The next guest that's going to be in this studio is a talkSPORT favourite, Luke Henry. We're going to get him in. I can't wait to talk to him about Arsenal, about the Premier League.
Got a Vinicius Junior top on.
I wouldn't put it past him, and we were speaking to him before the show, and the hope in his eyes when we brought
He's
up...
got another one made.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, he's going to come in with Vinicius Junior. We already spoke about it. Gyökeres is giving up number 14. It's going on Vinicius Junior's back. I reckon Luke is going to come in with something like that.
Well, let's get him in and find out. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly.
The Vinny Junior situation is interesting because I think when it came out of the weekend that Arsenal were keen, we all thought, well, how can they do that deal? He's on 400 grand a week. He'd smash Arsenal's pay structure.
Yeah.
Real Madrid, even though he's stalling on signing a new contract, are going to want a six-figure sum. But if they sign Diamonde, as looks likely, how do the two fit into the same team? And I think what's really interesting here, and Ben Jacobs, I think, has mentioned this a couple of times, they've got the same agent, Vinicius Junior and Yan Diamonde. So would his agency take Diamonde to Real Madrid knowing that he's going to compete with Vinicius Junior? I don't think Vinicius Junior to Arsenal is as fanciful as maybe it first appeared.
Now, when you look at Arsenal, they probably would. They've just got rid of Trossard.
Yeah, Trossard's gone.
So that's a space needs, and they've only got Martinelli on that left-hand side. So they do need somebody else. Who is that person that's going to be able to fill in that space for them? Because there's not a large selection around the world, is there, Quickie?
No, I thought it would be Morgan Rogers, to be honest. I thought that deal would get done. I know he met Mikel Arteta even before jetting out to the World Cup, and Arteta had made him a top target, but fair play, Chelsea came in and gazumped them. I'm not sure Arsenal would have paid £117 million anyway, but clearly they have got a hole in the squad. As you say, they've let Trossard go for a relatively modest sum, really, £17 million for a player who I think scored some key goals, particularly last season. Seems a little bit on the cheap side, but I think they're going to do something sensational, and it could well be that Vinicius Junior is the man, because you're right, there's not an endless list, is there, of left-sided.
Corinthian Casuals are a team in the Combined Counties League Premier Division South. Despite that, they're one of the most important clubs in world football. Here's why. The club was formed in 1939 as the result of a merger between Corinthians FC and Casuals FC. Now, Corinthians FC were founded in the late 1800s when the FA's top brass were sick of getting pumped by Scotland every time they played them. As a result, a man called Nicholas Lane Jackson set up an amateur side which would bring in the best players who could all play for the national side. And it worked. It wasn't long before England were dominating the international fixtures they played, and it was largely down to Corinthians. In fact, in 1894 and 1895, they played consecutive games where Corinthians provided the entire England 11. But the thing is, the players refused to play professional football. They didn't believe in it. They wanted to spread the values of sportsmanship, competition, and played for the love of the game. It also helped that most of the players were Oxbridge graduates who didn't need the money. But instead of entering the league and cup competitions, they played exhibition football and toured the world, bringing the beautiful game with them. And it was this which spread the game throughout the world and made it so popular. Most famously, in 1910, they travelled to Brazil. And the locals in Sao Paulo were so impressed, they started their own team under the same name. Yes, the same Corinthians who won the FIFA Club World Cup in 2021, one of the biggest football teams in Brazil. Now, they were global superstars, and despite not being professional, Corinthians drew in the crowds. Everybody wanted to play them, everybody wanted to watch them. So much so, they regularly played the winners of the FA Cup in what eventually became the Community Shield, winning most of the time. They actually inflicted Manchester United's worst defeat, 11-3, a record which still stands to this day. Now, fast forward to today, Corinthian Casuals still don't pay their staff or players. The ethos of sportsmanship is still at the heart of everything that they do. And even though they're a side in the lower leagues, if you make the trip to King George's Field in Tolworth just off the A3, you'll most likely bump into Brazilian Corinthians fans who often make the pilgrimage across the globe just to watch their founding team play.
Yes, you are listening to talkSPORT and the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, Angelina Kelly, and of course, I mentioned him, the host of Game Changers, super Arsenal fan, and talkSPORT favourite. I have to say that. Luke Henry is here. How are you, mate? You good?
Probably the nicest intro I think I'll ever get. Thank you so much. It's very kind.
Mate, they love you here. They love him here.
Where's his shirt, though?
Just in the works.
In the
You
works,
can't
you haven't
rush.
it printed.
Can't rush these things. These things take time. They take a lot of planning.
Yeah, well, listen, there's hope in your eyes. I can see that. Should we just get straight into it? Let's talk about it. Look at you bursting. You're being linked with Vinicius Jr. Arsenal are being linked with Vinicius Jr. How do you feel about that rumour? Is there any validity to it? If I had to ask for a percentage of you getting this over the line, what do you think it is right now?
Okay, right now I give it a 35%.
Oh, that's high.
Yeah, because I think there's actually some method to the madness. I know we call the transfer window silly season, but I think it would be silly if Arsenal didn't look at this. And the reason I think the reasons why is obviously he's got 12 months left on his contract.
Yeah.
He's obviously part of the agency of Rock Nation, which shares the same agency as Jean Diomande, who was going to go to PSG and now has gone to Real Madrid or is close to going to Real Madrid. And Gabriel Martinelli is also part of the agency, and there's another left-wing market that's open at PSG. So there could be a domino effect there. I've mentioned the fact that he's got 12 months left on his contract. And there's a bigger thing in football that I don't really want to have to come in here and talk about, but his relationship with Jose Mourinho. Yeah. I can't understand why you'd want to play for a manager that has basically said you were the reason why you got racially abused last season against Benfica.
Yeah.
And saying the reason why you celebrated was the cause of that, which I think is disgraceful. And he's gone through that for the last 4 or 5 years in Spain. But let's talk about the football. And a lot of people have talked about Arsenal saying, do you want to go to the next level? And in a market where there's a lot of you're paying for potential, to have a player like this available potentially, we don't know what it's going to look like, you would be silly not to explore it. And if Arsenal can put a bid down of around 140, 150 million, given this market, because you're paying for the likes of potential. Even Bradley Barker's name's been mentioned to a move to Liverpool for 120 million, or Yandy Amande for 100 million. You're never quite sure. But you look at Vinicius Jr. and you think that is genuine quality. And if Arsenal want to go any closer to what they did last season in the Champions League final, you want a star-studded attack, you want a player like that, that's the signing you want. You're Premier League champions. You have to act like it. Not saying it's going to be done, but there is a reason for Arsenal fans to go, well, actually, hold on a minute. We have a laugh and have a joke. But generally, why not? Why can't Arsenal explore this? That's the next stage in the evolution of this football club.
Oh my gosh, you've convinced me that it might happen now.
I'm with you.
I'm feeling converted. I mean, you're talking about something like a £400,000 a week salary as well. But in terms of the player himself, the ability, we're not questioning it at all. No. There is a word that comes with some players, and that word is baggage. And that has been attached to Vinicius Jr., rightly or wrongly. We've had a Real Madrid expert on saying rightly. Can Mikel Arteta, in your mind, manage a player of that calibre?
I think so. The reason why I say that is because people forget that Mikel Arteta's also played the game, and he played it not too long ago, and he dealt with players in that dressing room, and everyone that played with him said he was a manager then. There was times when he locked the doors and gave the team talks, and Arsene Wenger wasn't there. He's also had experience with Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, and people give him lots of credit for what he did there and how he's coached them, and also, again, working with big players. You have to remember their team and their bench back in 2019 and 2020. So there's this notion, I think, because of the situation with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he gets used unfairly, that he was criticised in the wrong way. But let's be honest, the world was a different picture back then. In a global pandemic, it was probably hard. But let's be honest, Aubameyang he did things he probably shouldn't have done. Yeah. And Arteta was strict and fair. And when you're coming into a football club, as broken as Arsenal was then, you have to instill some non-negotiables. People laughed about it, but 6 years later, it's come to fruition. That's why what he's done with his football club is turned it upside down, and it's gone so forward. And it's crazy to even come here and talk about the fact that this could even potentially happen. And I think that's just testament to the job he's done. So I firmly believe that he can do it. And you've got to listen to the way the players talk about him. The likes of Saka, the likes of Rice, the likes of Saliba. We talk about Real Madrid. And look, let's be honest, you're a 26-year-old South American. Your dream is to play for Real Madrid. It's going to be incredibly difficult to take someone out of Real Madrid and go to Arsenal, a team that, hasn't won the Champions League yet, but has just won the Premier League. But William Saliba signing that contract and rejecting the interest from Real Madrid and pledging his future because he said, I want to win here, speaks volumes. It speaks a lot to Arsenal fans. It might not transcend to the wider media, but it speaks a lot, and it means a lot for Arsenal fans. And that's the next step. And also this thing about players as well. We talk about, there might be conversations about the wages, like you said, about 400 grand a week. No, they all watch football. They all know who they're playing against. I'm pretty sure there's been conversations now going, could you imagine if we're playing with Vinicius Jr.? Could you imagine at the Emirates, you've got Saka, you've got Rice, you've got that defensive stability, you've got David Ryan goal's been brilliant for the last 3 seasons. You look at that and go, wow, look at this team. And then go, this is giving you the ammunition to go and try and win the Champions League, retain your Premier League trophy. It should be a really exciting time. So I think Arteta can coach him. I think he'll be a brilliant signing. I think it'd be a transformation signing for the Premier League. It'd be unbelievable to see a player like that. And it also a message to take someone, like I said, from Real Madrid. People will argue whether he's in his prime or he's got 2 more years until his prime, whatever. A player of that magnitude to come in to Arsenal Football Club would be brilliant. It'll give me a little bit of a vibe like Ozil did in 2013. Again, it's different circumstances. But the day Arsenal fans will tell you, the day they signed Mesut Ozil, that was just, wow, signing one of the best players in the world at that moment in time. Cristiano Ronaldo was furious about it, and from Real Madrid. And we'll see. But there's no reason why Arsenal fans can't believe, not expect, but believe. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And as of right now, it's just links, really.
Yes.
You've only got Hincapié over the line, but I mean, that is a huge link. Another link here, Bruno Gomes. I mean, that is you've got one extreme at there's a global superstar, and then you've got somebody who is Premier League proven. I assume that excites you as well, the prospect of having him.
This one is Arsenal fans may argue it might be 4 seasons too late, but it's still a player that has got remarkable quality. And I was talking about this last week, actually. If I had to pick between Morgan Rogers and Bruno Guimaraes in terms of importance, it's 100% Bruno Guimaraes, because you look at Declan Rice and what he's done for the last couple of seasons, and the fact we all know he needs a rest, and it'd be very foolish for Arteta and Berta not to have looked at that on the back of a World Cup and think we need significant replacements, but to keep the quality the same way. Like you said, Premier League proven, a captain, 28, 2 years left on his contract. wonderful footballer. The fact he can come in us and play as the number 8, he can play as number 6. We've got the likes of Martin Zubimendi, you've got the likes of Miles Lewis-Skelly. You even got to play Odegaard a little bit deeper. You can get the best out of Eberechi Eze. Mikel Merino can play in midfield or can play in the number 9 role. So, yeah, fantastic bit of business. Arsenal can get that done. Again, in this market, it's very, very hard to get the right price, and it's difficult. So if you get Bruno Guimaraes for in about 70, 75 million, I think you're onto something really, really strong there. And I think that's the thing with Arsenal in this market. We don't need too many players. It's difficult. Last season, Andre Alberto did a fantastic job. He was very aggressive in the market because we had to raise the ceiling, raise the floor quality so we could go deep in all the cup competitions. And we did, we went to the League Cup final, Champions League final. Yeah, lost to Southampton, but Arsenal played out of 65 games. They played 63. So they had a very, very good season. This time, the strategy is different. It needs to be 1 or 2 or 3 bits of quality that can help us go back to back, regain it. But also if we have injuries, because every team's going to get injuries, it's how you cope with them. It's no excuse. You just need to make sure there's sufficient quality in those gaps. So when they do happen, you've got Bruno Guimaraes coming in, or you've got Noni Madueke coming in, or Victor Gyökeres, or dare I say, Vinny Jr. starts. It could happen. So you just need to build a squad. But I trust them to do it. They've got a plan. I know Arsenal fans are probably panicking because of the lack of movement that's happening so far. But I know it's difficult because you want to be calm, but I do remain calm because they showed last season if they believe in their plan, they'll pull it off. Whatever they want, let's just see.
Well, Piero Hincapié has apparently been liking a few of Vinny Jr.'s
posts, don't give him hope, Ange.
I don't know what that could mean, but I completely agree with everything that you were saying, especially about Vinny Jr. And the first thing I thought was, how is he going to trust Jose Mourinho? How is he going to work with Jose Mourinho? Because unfortunately, racism is happening. It could happen again. And how can he trust that his manager's going to look after him? And one thing I thought with Arsenal, a club that has such a history of bringing in black players, supporting black players, that is something that people might talk about, oh, is Arsenal a bit of a sidestep compared to Real Madrid? But I think something like that would make a real difference to somebody like Vinicius Jr. Not to say that Real Madrid don't have his back, because they have put out statements, they have supported him, but to feel like you will have teammates that have potentially been through similar things. You think about what happened to Bukayo Saka after the Euros, etc. To have people that understand you a little bit more. But where do you stand with this whole it being a sidestep? Because I don't personally think it is. Because as much as it's Real Madrid, and we talk about a lot of South American players wanting to play for Real Madrid, Arsenal have got everything together. Out of all of the teams that are competing for the Premier League, Arsenal are the most organised, I would say, in that they've got a manager that's been there, they've got a squad, they've just won the Premier League, they should be going for the Champions League. So is it really a sidestep when you think of the chaos of Real Madrid? Still playing in the Premier League, biggest league.
I get it, but you have to look in. It's what we do in football. It's the unwritten rule, isn't it? We all go, oh, it's Real Madrid. It's just the allure of playing in the right Real Madrid, the Galacticos.
Yeah.
From the outside in, from going from Real Madrid at 26 to Arsenal, it can be viewed as a sideways steps, like I said, because he's leaving a team that's won 15 Champions Leagues and joining a team that hasn't. Sure. But we did have a chat.
He could.
And there's no reason why he can't. We're at the start of a project now, and the next stage of that is to try and dominate and compete. Arsenal fans don't want this just to be the one trophy and we wait another 10 years. We want to really, kick on now. And we said, if you look at Europe right now in terms of sporting project and the stability, Arsenal is probably one of the strongest and stable projects right now. You know what you're going to get from the manager. You look at the players that we've got, and it's Real Madrid, obviously the biggest club, of course that. But there's no reason why you can't join another club that's a size of Arsenal. And Arsenal are a massive club in their own right.
And it would put him on the map in the English-speaking world. And
London's a lovely place. And also, don't forget, Brazil play their games at the Emirates. I'm sure he's had a word with Gabriel Magalhaes about it, or Gabriel Martinelli. I'm sure he's had a little look about what North London could be like. But you never know. You can dream. But I just think... why not? The only problem is, though, if we don't sign him, then the Arsenal fans are going to question who's going to come in, because that's how... And look, you're never going to know everything, but if you go from Vinny to someone else, then who knows? But let's just see what happens.
Just quickly as well, Gabriel Jesus potentially might be leaving. What are your initial thoughts? You've winced there as I've said that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Does that hurt, that one?
No, I'm just surprised he's still there. And that's
I actually forgot he was still there.
that's another... It's difficult, but that's what Arsenal need to do. And one thing Arsenal needs to do, it's not about going out and buying players. Arsenal do need to learn how to sell, especially now being Premier League champions. That should give you a little bit of more aggression in the market to go, listen, this is what this team is capable of. You should be able to sell some players. So there's a lot to sell. There's like Sir Fabio Vieira still in the books. We've still got Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, Christian Yorgaard's a little bit different, but we saw what happened last season. Didn't get a lot of game time. So interesting to see what happens there. Reece Nelson's still an Arsenal player. He hasn't found himself a permanent move. So we do need to clear the books. But like I said, Arsenal fans, I know might seem a little bit nervous now, but let's just see what the end of the week brings, and hopefully we get some good news on both Brazilians, Bruno and Vinny.
Absolutely. One last rumour here I want to talk to you about, just quickly to get a sentence on, is Konsa. Do you like that? Is that an attractive prospect for you to sign a player of Konsa's calibre?
Can understand it with Saliba's injury. We don't know how long he's going to be injured for. I think there's been quotes about 50, 60 million. I don't want Arsenal to pay that. I don't think any Arsenal fan will want to pay that.
Yeah.
Makes sense because he can play right back and centre back. Premier League proven, something that Arteta's really fond on, and versatility. Not my first choice, but I can understand it. It makes a lot of sense. If you ask me who I'd pick Josh Adjupong, because I think that's one for the future. And I think he's a really bit smart signing that would be now. But listen, if they get me Vinny and get me Bruno, they can do whatever they want at that back line. I'd be delighted. But it does make sense. 3 signings. Let's see if there's another market opportunity in there. And that's what they need to do. You need to be patient, because sometimes, imagine if we had signed Morgan Rogers, for example. I think he's a great player. Look, just say Arsenal signed him, and then a week later the news breaks that Vinny could be available. Then you just don't know. So sometimes you have to wait and be patient and stick to your plan and stick to your valuation, and that's what I really respect Arsenal doing right now. They've got a plan in place. They've got some valuations in line. They have to stick to them. Difficult given an inflated market, and hopefully the plan plays off. Let's just see.
What do you think, Ange? Do you think next time we speak to Luke, he'll be wearing a Vinny Jr. shirt?
It's already getting printed, isn't it? So yeah,
I can't wait.
The next time I see you, and I do believe that Gyökeres should give up 14 for him. 100%. I think he's got to give that up for somebody like Vinny Jr. So I think you've done the right thing getting the 14 on there already. And the next time I see you, you're going to be swanning around the office, innit?
Or the next time it'll be, do you want to come in and talk about Arsenal, the fact they failed to get both Brazilians over the line? Let's hope for the positive. But I'm feeling good.
Luke Henry, you lived up to that lovely intro that you said I gave you.
talkSPORT favourite, it's great. I could talk about it all day. It's great.
That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mate. And you listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly.
Vinicius Jr. I'll read this from the Telegraph Sport, their sports pull-out this morning. Dom King writes, Arsenal prepared to offer Brazilian forward Vinny Jr. the biggest contract in the club's history as they plot to outline their soaring ambition. He currently commands a weekly salary, 400,000 euros a week at Madrid, but Arsenal would look to improve that to maximise their chances of pulling off an audacious coup. It kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it, boys, on Saturday afternoon. He's got a year left on his deal at Real Madrid. Arsenal exploring the possibility, Troy, of signing Vinny Jr. Is it going to happen? And if it does happen, where does this rank in Premier League history in terms of biggest coups for the Premier League, not just Arsenal?
If it did happen, it would be amazing for the Premier League to have a superstar on that level in terms of global appeal, blah, 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 all that stuff. I don't like it.
Why?
I don't like it. I don't think it suits the way that Arsenal play. I don't think his personality suits.
Hello, you are listening to talkSPORT and the Transfer Insiders with me, Ryan Scott Douglas. Alongside me is Angelina Kelly. And this is the bit where Angelina's going to take us through some transfer rumours in the WSL. There's a lot going on. Before we do that, we're going to get an update with Georgie Heath. We've been throwing over to Georgie for an update with the Commonwealth Games. Let's do that again. Georgie, how are things getting on?
There is so much sport still going on in Glasgow. We've just had the conclusion to the men's 1500 metre T20 final, and it was gold for Scotland's Ben Sandilands there. And we've had action also in the pool as well. Adam Ramsey Peaty coming out with another bronze earlier on today to go with that he won just a couple of days ago. In the boxing that I've got my eyes on at the moment, in the men's 80 kilograms, round of 16, Dimeji Shitu from England has just outboxed Alfred Ojok from Uganda, so 5-0 to him there. There's also still action going on in the women's pairs of the bowls as well. England, Wales and Scotland all in action there, and then plenty still to come from all over Glasgow. Still action going on in the pool as the relays are about to get underway there too, and then still more to go on down on the track and in the field. The hammer has just concluded, and there's the high jump still going on at the moment, so plenty of action still going on in Glasgow tonight.
Commonwealth Games update on talkSPORT with BYD. Dare to dream with BYD and the Commonwealth Games.
Georgie, thank you very much. Angelina, loads gone in the WSL. London City Lionesses, they've been the talking point, haven't they? And more importantly, two-time Ballon d'Or winner Alexia Putellas, who signed for Barcelona.
Yes. So for those who may not be aware of London City Lionesses, they were Millwall's women's team, but they are completely separate now. They were bought up by American billionaire Michelle Kang, who also owns a team in the US, Washington Spirit. Right. Lyon's very successful women's team, the most successful team in the Women's Champions League. She also has a controlling stake in the men's team after making John Textor move over. So she is a serious operator, and she's not messing about. You know, last season was London City Lionesses' first season in the Women's Super League. They must have brought in about 16, 17 signings, which, yeah, it was insane. And, you know, some of them exciting young prospects, some of them older, more experienced players. And the manager at the time, Jocelyn Prechot, did talk about that being difficult. They parted ways with him in the December. They brought in a new manager who isn't proven, hasn't won anything. Before London City Lionesses was managing Tenerife. So minus going to Tenerife on your holidays, the women's team haven't done too much, I'll be completely honest. But Michelle is not messing about. They finished 6th, which is quite good for a promoted team. And she wants it all. She wants silverware. Regarding London City Lionesses being in the Champions League, that's going to be difficult because she owns Lyon as well, which she would have to make some kind of allowances because obviously you cannot own 2 clubs that are in the Champions League. Yeah. But yeah, she signed Alexia Putellas.
So that's signed. That's a done deal.
It is a done deal. She left Barcelona. You know, after a fantastic career with the side. There was a part of her that I think didn't want to have to face Barcelona just yet. So playing for London City Lionesses, there's no Champions League football for them yet. But, you know, she still wants to compete. I'm sure that financially Michelle will have made it worth her while. But it is a massive signing for them. And seeing her in the Women's Super League, that's going to be huge for fans. So it will be an interesting one. But Michelle in general, you know, her Lyon side lost in the Champions League final to Barcelona. Right. And I think Michelle has taken it as a bit of a personal attack because she's basically just gone through Barcelona's team and took 3 of their greatest players. They've took Alexia Putellas, she's taken Mappy Leon, a defender who's also gone to London City Lionesses, and Salma Parayuelo, she's also gone, but she's gone to Lyon. So Michelle's basically just looked at Barcelona and thought, I'm having some of these players. I'm going to make you guys hurt after making Lyon lose that Champions League final. So, yeah, very interesting from London City Lionesses. But will they really be able to permeate that top 3 that is normally Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City?
That's incredible. They have been busy. You weren't joking. And let's piggyback on Manchester City then. Yeah. They've made a few good signings, but they've kept Bunny Shaw. How important was that for them?
Massive. I mean, Bunny Shaw, in my opinion, will be winning the Ballon d'Or one day. You know, she got the Golden Boot in the WSL the last 2 seasons, shared it, you know, had it herself this season, the season before, shared it with Alessia Russo, but she's such a talent. And when there were reports that Chelsea were potentially interested, etc., you just thought you have to keep her. So the fact that they have, I think, is really important. I think also bringing somebody like Beth Mead in, you know, an absolute legend for Arsenal, will have been hard for her to say goodbye to the North London side, but a very experienced player in the Women's Super League. A really good signing. Obviously, her partner is Viviana Miedema, who also plays for Manchester City. So from a personal point of view, I'm sure that's a nice one for her. But, you know, it took City, you know, a decade to get this title last season. They were absolutely fantastic. They've got a great manager in Andre Jeglerts as well. So I think that, you know, all of these pieces will kind of fit together, and I expect them to go again.
Yeah. Arsenal and Chelsea, you mentioned them briefly earlier. They've been shopping around as well, have they?
Yes. So, of course, 2 seasons ago, Arsenal won their second Champions League title. They didn't start last season off as well as many had hoped. And I think had they have been so consistent through the whole season, they would have really affected Manchester City even more so in the title race. They took it as down to the wire as they possibly could. But they could have done way more damage and it would have been even tighter. So they have made some signings. Georgia Stanway, England midfielder. She's left Bayern Munich. She's now with Arsenal. They've also signed Ona Badie, who is a Spain fullback. She is one of the key pieces in this Spain team that is definitely going to challenge for the World Cup next season. I think getting her in is really important, getting some players for squad depth like goalkeeper Misa Rodriguez, Isabella Dam, etc. are going to be good. You know, they've laid some good foundations, and I think that this is now, again, a situation where things are going to come together. With the WSL, because it is so tight at the top, you can lose 1 or 2 games and that could mean that the season's done for you.
Right.
So it is really, really important to have that squad depth. Arsenal will be hurt about the Champions League. They'll want to go far in that competition again. So having the squad depth, I think, is going to be important.
And what about Manchester United? Have they been shopping around? Have they not been so busy? How would you summarise their window so far?
Manchester United, I mean...
Oh, no.
Disappointing, to
Really?
be completely honest. I mean, you look at Manchester United... They've got to a certain level and they just can't make that step up. They were in the League Cup final against Chelsea last season. They didn't show up. They did get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time in their history. And, you know, it was a great achievement. And speaking to the manager, Mark Skinner, a lot of the conversation was the issue was squad depth. Obviously, players like Ella Toone had an injury and was out for periods of the season, but squad depth was key. And we've seen players like Millie Turner leave, Leah Galton's left the club. That's probably more an age thing and injuries, but certain names that you would look at as squad players, they've departed. They've made 2 signings, a goalkeeper and a defender. But the big loss has been Melvin Mallard. She is a French striker, very, very promising. She's 26, so just getting into that prime. And Chelsea have taken her. You know, she played with Sonia Bonpastor, the Chelsea manager. She coached her at Lyon, so Mallard has that connection to her. And I think Sonia has been able to influence her and, you know, have a word and say, come and play with me again. You enjoyed it so much. Let's work together at Chelsea.
Yeah.
So the only, you know, there's only a couple of players for Manchester United that I think are superstar level. I think you've got Ella Toone. I think that Jess Park's a great player. Fallon Tullis-Joyce is a world-class goalkeeper. Apart from those 3 players, there are other players that are good, but they've lost some squad depth. They've only brought in 2 players, and I think that they're really going to struggle to keep up with the top 3. Spurs have made a lot of good signings. They've got a great manager in Martin Ho as well. I think that they could potentially leapfrog Manchester United, and I think they're in serious trouble.
By the way, Ange, that was a proper rundown. That you spoiled us there. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Very interesting. Now, make sure you grab a pint of So Good Lager from talkSPORT, and meantime, it's available in all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports bars across the country. Find out where your nearest pub is at talksport.com/so good. 18 plus, always drink responsibly. And next, we will go over the top stories of the day. You've been listening to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT.
It should be a case of, will we buy him? Not, you know, more, will he buy into our club's ethos and the family feel? You know, you cannot upset the dressing room vibe for anyone, no matter their reputation or their credentials.
So are you suggesting that if he comes to your club, he will upset the dressing room?
Not if we've done due diligence and Arteta talks to the man, not the footballer. But I promise you one thing, as a little bit of an aside and maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, if we do sign him, see just how quickly he becomes the most average winger in the world.
Dad, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You say there, interview the man. When have you ever known anyone to not buy into it before they've got in the building? So if you're Vinny Jr., you're going to put best foot forward, right? I'll buy in, Gaffer. I'll do all of these things. It's more worrying for me once he's in the building. I think the way that Arsenal won it was as a team and as a collective. And then if you add this superstar in, who, as Real Madrid have found out, will only defend when he wants to, will only play a formation that he wants to play, I think it causes so much more problems than it's worth.
Yeah, but I think that Arteta and the powers that be are good enough to sniff that out. I think Arteta's already proven in.
Here are some of the best off-camera anecdotes from recent years at the Ryder Cup. As caddy Billy Foster went to relieve himself at the Belfry, he noticed only one of the 2 cubicles had toilet paper. Shortly after he'd sat down, Tiger Woods went into the empty cubicle and realised his mistake all too late. So Foster took some paper, reached under the cubicle with a rescue offering, and as Tiger went to take it, Foster uttered the words, "Europe, one up." Fast forward 10 years to the miraculous Medina. Rory McIlroy overslept and was in danger of missing his Sunday tee time. Thankfully, travel organiser Erica Stoll.
This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Ryan Scott Douglas, and Angelina Kelly. What a busy day of transfer rumours it has been. It's all been covered here on talkSPORT, of course it has. Let's start with the news that John Stones is set to join Inter Milan. Here's talkSPORT's Ben Jacobs on the news.
I think this is advanced as well. So Stones was always going to assess his options after the World Cup. He had an excellent World Cup. He put himself in the shop window. But interestingly, the Italian teams that have looked at John Stones, Juventus and Inter, were there before the World Cup. And I think that's working to their advantage. More recently, Chelsea have looked. Max Lacroix already coming in. Arsenal also like Stones. They see opportunism because William Saliba has that back injury. But they're focused at the moment on seeing if they can get Ezri Konsa out of Aston Villa, which won't be easy because there's a gulf in valuation. Now, Stones has heard those Premier League pitches, but the Italian clubs have got more long-standing negotiation. And my understanding is that Inter are really close to not just persuading Stones, but actually formalising the deal. There's an agreement in principle with the player. There has been for a matter of days now post-World Cup. And unless a Premier League club, and we have to be open to this, I suppose, at the last minute hijacks the deal, all signs are that John Stones is going to sign with Inter.
Ange, what about that? What about that? I mean, it turns out it's probably a lot closer. It's basically done, which is, I mean, I didn't think that, to be honest. I didn't know where his next club would be. What do you make of the fit between John Stones and Inter Milan? Do you think that can work?
I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to John Stones, but we know that Serie A is a little bit easier than the Premier League, shall we say.
Slower pace. And
so, you know, he's what, 32 years of age. So we know that he's had a lot of injuries this season. Well, the season just gone with Manchester City. He was brilliant for England, but that might be a nicer fit. And also the opportunity to be playing for a team like Inter Milan, you know, might be nice for him, for his family, etc. I think he could have stayed in the Premier League, to be completely honest. I think when you look at Arsenal and the William Saliba injury, I know that John Stones was a potential name to be linked to Arsenal to, you know, maybe not playing week in, week out starting, but especially whilst Arsenal had that injury issue for, you know, maybe a third of the season to have to be involved and to step up. He's got great experience. I think that he would have slotted quite nicely in with Arsenal. But you know what? If he wants to head to Inter Milan, then fair dues. I would not be mad at, you know, going and living in Milan, most definitely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's definitely going to be thinking about that for sure. But you mentioned Arsenal there. What do you think about any other clubs? I mean, I think there's a multitude of clubs that he could still start for. Maybe that, I mean, all the way back to Everton. If it's clearly, I don't want to question his ambition because Inter Milan are a massive, massive side. Yeah. But in terms of him and the challenges he wants to give himself, I think he could still do a job in the Premier League.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, maybe he's at a stage where he thinks I've kind of ticked a lot of boxes. I've achieved everything that I wanted to in the Premier League. Maybe he does want that break. As much as he was great for England, we do have to be honest, he wasn't fit this season.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably playing a role in it of, we know the famous line of, don't leave the football and all that stuff. Let the football leave you. Whatever it was, that line, I can't remember now. But it's, maybe he's thinking, I need to start winding down now. This is the right time versus going to another club in the Premier League. Maybe things not clicking too well, it going downhill. Not saying that it would ruin his reputation or anything like that.
Yeah.
But also, is there a guarantee of starting? And if he does still want to be in the mix with England, maybe with Inter Milan, there's more opportunities for him to be starting. So maybe that's why.
Leave the football before the football
Thank
leaves
you. That was it.
But that was about Casemiro, by the way,
Yeah.
and the football came back. Okay,
It sure did. So you never know.
Exactly. Just quickly, you mentioned England there. You were out there. You saw a lot of England and John Stones. What did you make of his campaign? Do you think he played well? Do you think he hit the ground running for them?
Yeah, I think that he was brilliant. There was a part of me, maybe because I'm a Manchester United fan, maybe I am a little bit biased, that I thought if you're taking somebody like John Stones, could Harry Maguire have been a fit, or could he have maybe been a little bit better? But I think when called upon, John Stones was brilliant. I know that we all enjoyed Dan Burns cameos. I know Ollie Klink in particular, as a Newcastle fan, was absolutely buzzing with it. But yeah, no, I think he did a good job, and that's what you want from having a squad of England players, for somebody to be able to step up when asked, even if he's not starting every game. And I think that was one thing that was nice with England, that we had Thomas Tuchel rely on for the majority of the tournament. He relied on his bench. He trusted the people that were coming off the bench and impacting the games in general. So I think that was really nice to see.
Lastly on Stones, I mean, we've had someone come and represent Manchester City and talked about, I mean, Pep Guardiola's left and Bernardo Silva's left and Rodri's been linked away. I think you can factor John Stones into that line of thinking. That's one of the core components of the dressing room. Do you think Manchester City fans, maybe not for his ability, but they'll be thinking we've lost a key, like a figurehead in that dressing room?
Oh, massively. I think that's definitely going to play in people's minds. And even some of the other players that have departed, Nathan Ake has actually been at the club for quite a long time. You think about the impact that somebody like him maybe will have had. Rodri, we don't know what's going to happen with his future. There are a couple of names that you do look at and think, that could be a little bit of a miss. On top of obviously Pep Guardiola not being there, you would then rely on some of the players that have been there for a while, that understand the club, that understand the Manchester City DNA, to be able to help the newcomers, and also Maresca, because it's not an easy job replacing Pep Guardiola. We saw Barcelona struggle with it for a couple of seasons before they got it quite right. So I think having people like Stones would have been important.
I'll be honest with you. I think this John Stones to Inter transfer, obviously it's caught me off guard a little bit with Ben Jacobs just saying how close it was. I think that's a brilliant transfer for them. I think it's so good, and for a multitude of reasons, because yes, he's been a fantastic servant to Manchester City. I still think he's got it. I still think, and like you say, that in terms of the pace of the league, I think he's going to transition into that beautifully. But then you see all these social media clips of John Stones in the dressing room. See the way he dances. We caught that fever, that John Stones fever, the vibes he can bring up, and we will get onto Chelsea and Danny Welbeck and Jordan Henderson and that. But I wouldn't say he's necessarily old guard just yet. But it's such a good transfer for them, and they get everything. I think they get everything in that John Stones transfer. Obviously, I'm a Man United fan, but to speak about someone from Manchester City, it's difficult. It's difficult, but I really do think that is a fantastic transfer. Let's talk about Danny Welbeck and Chelsea. That is, I mean, it's just a link right now. But we've talked about how Manchester United should have looked at a player of this calibre. He could have fit us perfectly right now. That's a good little link, that, for Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think Danny Welbeck and Jordan Henderson, I think that they're both really good links for Chelsea. I think with Danny Welbeck, I would have liked Manchester United to have gone in for him. I think that he, understands Manchester United. He's a Manchester lad. I think he would have been great support for somebody like Benjamin Šeško, who's still finding his feet in the Premier League. But if Chelsea get him, I think that he would be a real asset. I think when you look at the options that they've got, they've got up front. I think that he would be a great addition. Like I say, maybe not starting week in, week out, but being able to slot in when needed, I think is massive. I know that Alonso played against Welbeck back in the day when Real Madrid and Man United were facing off in the Champions League round of 16. Sir Alex Ferguson trusted Welbeck to be a player to try and close Alonso down in one of those games. So he'll be aware of him, and he'll be aware of what tactically he can offer. And if you're coming into a new club, there are some changes that are going to need to be made. It's a young team. I think having someone like Welbeck would be important. And the same goes with somebody like Jordan Henderson. I know that people may think, oh, well, you know, he didn't play at the World Cup. You know, like, is he just a bit of a vibesman or something like that? But hearing around the World Cup the way that players like Morgan Rogers and Jude Bellingham spoke about him, they could not speak highly enough of him. They were saying what a fantastic person he is.
Yeah.
Off the pitch, but also on the pitch. I think Morgan Rogers said he's the best person he's met in football. That could potentially be his teammate. So I think as much as people might, you know, turn their nose up a little bit at Jordan Henderson, you know, should Chelsea be going for somebody else? The fact that you've got players like Jude Bellingham and Morgan Rogers speaking about him in that way, they're not doing that, you know, they're not trying to promote him for no reason or anything like that. It's because they must genuinely think that. So I think, again, he could be an asset, especially with these discipline issues that Chelsea are having. Somebody like Jordan Henderson, I think, would be really important.
To be honest, I think the pair of these, I mean, Jordan Henderson is quite low risk if it's a free transfer, and Danny Welbeck. Yes, we're gonna loop their ages into this conversation because that's the low hanging fruit and the natural thing to do. But make no mistake about it. I mean, Danny Welbeck, the season he's just had, would be an asset to most teams in the Premier League. So that link, again, as a Manchester United fan looking at Chelsea going in for business, makes complete sense for me. It really does. And the Jordan Henderson one, like I say, it's risk-free in many ways. So I do get that one as well. What do you make of actually the fact that it looks like Chelsea are pivoting from their usual transfer strategy of just kind of buying up the youngsters? Rory Jennings says this all the time on our podcast, Studs Up, that they're looking at the future. They're looking at the potential fee when they sign players. They are literally just assets. But then now there's no way he can say that. What do you make of that pivot?
I think that it's good. I think that it could be worrying for other big clubs. I think a few people have maybe been, you know, scoffing at Chelsea a bit and their strategy and how they don't believe that it's right. So to see them switch, I think people will be a little bit worried. And I think that the changing of this strategy has clearly got a lot to do with Xabi Alonso and what he's maybe said in the conversations, and it's made them change their approach. Some of these potential signings do look more sensible, and that's what Chelsea need. They need some more sensible players. I think that, you know, Danny Welbeck, Max Sensor-Quad, you know, wouldn't have been bought by them before this summer, you know, with the Clear Lake ownership. So yeah, whatever he said, keep saying it. And I think that this is going to be really important for Chelsea moving forward.
Of course, Chelsea get Morgan Rogers through the door as well. And you know, we're talking about the lack of marquee signing for Manchester United. I think you could class that, especially with the calibre of the fee, as a marquee signing. They're clearly laying the gauntlet down on what they want to do there. I still think, and again, we've got a bit of Chelsea perspective on this show today, I still think they're in a bit of no man's land. I don't know if Chelsea know what to expect from themselves, to be honest with you. Do you think, with Alonso, who you could virtually class as, I mean, a transfer, whether you class a new manager's transfer is a different story, but do you think that he could lead them to a potential title challenge?
It's a difficult one because I think this Premier League title race, I'm expecting it to be very wide open because we've got a lot of chaos. You know, you've got Mikel Arteta, and is it a stat that you know, Ryan, about Michael Carrick as well?
Yeah, Michael Carrick is out of the top 6 clubs, is the second longest serving manager behind Arteta, which is ridiculous. Just the chopping and changes that there's been at the top.
So that's it. There's going to be a lot of changes. We know that Alonso did very well in Germany. However, I can't imagine that Real Madrid experience did wonders for his ego, to put it lightly. That can't have been easy, making that step up to such a huge club and things going so wrong. So maybe he's going to have a little bit of trepidation coming into this, or maybe not. Maybe it hasn't affected him. Maybe he's just going to go straight ahead, full steam ahead. But I think it's a little bit too early to be saying title challengers because it was bad last season.
Oh,
it was very, very bad. And I think that he deserves to have definitely more time than he had at Real Madrid. We know that they're a little bit impatient, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I think that he needs a little bit of time. But regarding down the line, if these sensible transfers do happen, if he does get a tune out of this team, if he gets more cohesiveness, if he gets more discipline, then I think that they are all the steps to get to that.
I agree. I think what he did at Bayer Leverkusen cannot be overlooked in terms of his managerial CV. And anybody, Real Madrid are one of those clubs where it doesn't matter what your reputation is as a manager. Anybody can go into that club, get chewed up and spat out. And I feel like it wasn't as bad and as drastic as that, but he may have fallen victim to that kind of Real Madrid, and we were calling basket cases earlier. It can be absolute chaos there at times. So I think I've got a terrible gut feeling that this is going to work out for Chelsea. I really, really do. I think he's the best of the rest, I would probably say. And this is a long-term project, of course, with Xabi Alonso. That's the Chelsea side of things. This is a Transfer Insiders, I have to say. Next, we will chat about James Trafford and our club, Manchester United. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT, and the breaking transfer news just continues to happen on this show. Leeds look to break their club record fee for Manchester City's James Trafford. Before I get your thoughts, Angelina, let's hear from Steve McInerney from the Esteemed Company fan channel, who gave us his thoughts on Trafford potentially leaving.
For me personally, I was watching for the academy sides a long time ago, and I've always been a big fan of James Trafford. I remember seeing when he was about 16, thinking this guy could be City's number one day, and I still feel that as well. There's a big divide between City fans. It's Donnarumma or Trafford. Everyone's got a camp to choose, and I understand the merits of both. Donnarumma is a world-class goalkeeper. I think Trafford's probably more well-rounded as a Manchester City goalkeeper, in terms of he's better on the ball and he's better sweeper keeper and maybe a little bit less flappy on crosses than Donnarumma is. But Donnarumma is a brilliant player, so he's an elite-level goalkeeper, so I can't complain too much. I'm attached to Trafford because he was an academy player.
Yeah.
Because I witnessed him, witnessed his journey, so to speak, and I felt a bit sorry for him because he obviously was under the impression that he was coming back to be, if not number one immediately, eventually. But that had changed when Donnarumma joined, and I think he'll reach the very top. He'll be England number one. He'll be a top quality goalkeeper. And I really rate James Trafford. I think he's going to be brilliant. I'm happy that he gets a good move. But for me personally, and once again, it's very divided amongst City fans.
Yeah.
For me, it's a bit of a loss. Don't forget, we won 2 trophies last season, and he was the goalkeeper for both of them. And I think our best football came in the cup competition. So make of that what you will.
Really, really interesting that the fan base is split into two camps between Donnarumma and Trafford, and that he feels that Manchester City view him as more of a Man City goalkeeper. So how much of a fantastic transfer would this be for Leeds if they get this over the line?
I think it would be great for Leeds. I mean, I do feel for James Trafford, the way the rug kind of got pulled from under him. Donnarumma walks in. But like Stephen touched on, he did really well in the cup competitions. I think that he's gone to Leeds because he sees it as a stepping stone. He's got a release clause. I think that Leeds have done a good job to get him over the line. They've clearly thrown money at it. I think that Trafford wants to be there for a year or two, prove that he can do it in the Premier League, and then maybe get a bigger move. But I think he'll have his eye on the England #1 shirt, to be completely honest. I think that he's a good modern keeper, tall, can also play with the ball at his feet as well. So I think it's a hard one for Manchester City fans because, Donnarumma did come in and people view him as a world-class goalkeeper, and that's just the way that it is. But I think it's important for Trafford. He deserves a move and he deserves the playing time.
I think there's so many reasons why this is a good transfer because, I mean, I think there's a goalkeeper shortage in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think there's a lack of really, really good goalkeepers. I mean, Chelsea are looking for a goalkeeper as well, for example. Manchester United, we saw just how much they suffered with Onana, and Lamens comes in, and Lamens isn't a world-class keeper by any stretch, but he's steadied the ship. And I think this, for example, it is such a good transfer. I really do. And it's not a sexy position. It's not a sexy position, a goalkeeper, is it? So sometimes it's hard to get excited about, but I can see exactly why Leeds have pinpointed James Trafford to kind of, to get things going and to break their club record fee. I think there's a lot to read into that as well. You touched on England. Again, you were out in the World Cup. You saw England. We all saw England, whether you were watching on TV, whether you were there or not. Do you think that is destined? Everyone seems to say that. Do you think that he's just next in line for that #1 jersey?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, you've got Jordan Pickford, who's 32 years of age. I think overall, people may have argued that one or two things he could have done a little bit better with during the World Cup.
Yeah.
But I do think that he's rarely let England down. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, he's rubbish, get him out. But I think regarding the future, I think that Trafford is definitely a name that stands out. And I think that's even more important, again, if you put your England cap on, why it's important for him to get this move, get the minutes, get the experience in the Premier League, the best league in the world. It puts him in a fantastic position when you're thinking about, maybe not the next Euros, but definitely the next World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about our beloved Manchester United then, shall we? Look at that. You've perked up all of a sudden. Here we go. Let's talk about the transfer business that has been done so far. Santos and Tielemans. I mean, Tielemans, I have to say, when the news came through, I've been wanting Tielemans for years and years and years. And my mate who knows this, he texted me straight away as soon as it was announced. He said, you got your boy. It's 4 years too late, but you got your boy. And I'm still so happy about it because he's still the right side of 30. Combine that with Santos. What do you make of those two signings as a Manchester United fan yourself?
I think that they've been good signings overall. I think that there were rumours that Manchester United would get a big marquee signing. Everyone had their fingers crossed that it would be Elliot Anderson. It hasn't been. Carlos Baleba was linked, etc. And it's not a disrespect to either player, but I don't look at either and think, this is the big signing that everybody was talking about. I think that they're two really good midfielders. They can play in different roles. I think that they can rotate. Squad depth is going to be important for Manchester United. So yeah, I think overall it's been good business. I just think that United need more.
So that more, I mean, when you say United need more, my thoughts immediately go to the defence.
Yep.
I've felt a kind of way about the defence anyway. I mean, Yoro, you're investing in the future. Maguire, I don't think it is good enough to be a star. I don't think you win a Premier League with Harry Maguire. Martinez, I just wish that boy was fit. I really, really feel for him, but it feels like, especially with him getting injured in the final, he looks like he could be shot to pieces and injury prone. No, which is a sad thing to say. Is that where your mind goes to as well? Is it the defence too?
Yeah, 100%. I think that you could make an argument for, Man United are now playing again with a back four. I think that you could make an argument for each position.
Yeah.
Lenny Yoro and Aiden Heaven, when called upon, I think overall have been good. Yoro, a few mistakes, looks a little bit nervous, but they're definitely ones for the future. Harry Maguire, I'm happy that he's staying for now. Matthias de Ligt, where is he? Injury, such a shame. I really wanted this to work for him. But he's injured, and same with Martinez. So I think regarding centre-backs, that's key area we have to sign at least one centre-back. Otherwise, I do think that this has been a failure of a transfer window, to be completely honest, because it's glaringly obvious that that is one of the big issues. Fullbacks, you can make your complaints about the fullbacks as well. Diogo Dalot, nice guy. Do I think that United are going to win a Premier League trophy with him as right back? Probably not. And I don't mean to be horrible because he seems like a lovely person, but Luke Shaw, love Luke Shaw on his day, but he was competing and he was staying fit last season when United had the smallest volume of matches. Playing, hopefully, going as far as United can possibly go, not getting knocked out of a cup by Grimsby again. If United can go far, can you rely on Luke Shaw? I thought Jed Spence looked great at the World Cup. I think he'd be someone that I would look at as a potential replacement for Luke Shaw to really bring some important pace down that left wing. So, yeah, I think defensively, they've got to make some signings.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more. And not so much a transfer, but the return of Marcus Rashford potentially. Yes. There's so much about this story. And again, in terms of splitting a fan base, I've noticed, especially online, the comments are so divided on whether they should, invest in him again. Where are you with this? Has the ship sailed with Manchester United, or do you keep him?
It's a hard one for me personally. I think the ship has sailed. However, the fact is that Marcus Rashford is still a Manchester United player.
Yeah.
He may be in the mix. I don't think that it serves anybody for Michael Carrick to just keep him out in the cold. He's there. Why not try and use him? However, I think that it would be far better for everybody for Marcus Rashford to get a move. I think that the way things have gone, it has been quite sad. If he was playing for Manchester United, the fans would back him. However, I do think fans have been disappointed in, some of his behaviour reportedly off the pitch. We don't know everything that goes on behind closed doors, of course, but I think he would need to address a little bit of it and, maybe apologise to the fans a little bit because they've always rooted for him. I know that when he departed from Manchester United, when he said that he wanted a change, and when he spoke to Henry Winter, he said, I'm not going to speak negatively about the club. I'm 100% a Red. So I like that he stuck by that. But it's a really difficult one. I just think there's a reason why you don't go back to some things sometimes, and I just don't see how it would work. And to be completely honest, if I'm looking at it from an England perspective, I wouldn't want him. If I'm looking at it as an England fan, I wouldn't want Marcus Rashford at Manchester United. He was great at the World Cup. We need to keep him playing consistently, keep his confidence levels up. And I don't think he starts for Manchester United. I don't think at this moment in time he's better than Cunha. I mean, some people are even looking at backups to Cunha as Patrick Dorgu. Everyone's excited to see him as a left winger. He looked good before he got injured. The number 10 positions, United are pretty stacked there. Would you put him in ahead of Benjamin Šeško? Probably not. So I think for the good of Marcus Rashford's future, it needs to be away from Manchester United.
Wow. Well, there you go. Angelina, thank you so much. We've flown through 3 hours. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you've powered through despite being ill, I have to say that.
Always for talkSPORT.
Anything for talkSPORT. Bleeds black and yellow. Up next is the Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara and Jermaine Pennant. 0371 722 3344. That's the number you need. Get your calls in now. The Sports Bar is next with O'Hara and Pennant.
Get the big money coming in from the Middle Eastern state. It comes in and you think to yourself, this is us now. Yeah. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to be spending this.
It hasn't happened that way.
Well, it can't happen like that because of the financial rules connected.
They put a cap on it at the wrong time for them.
Right. So they've got handcuffs. They've got all this dough, but they've got handcuffs and they can't do X, Y, and Z. But when players are going out for fees and stuff, then obviously that needs to be reinvested, and you need to obviously reinvest it wisely enough to be able to strengthen the side and be able to kick the side on. Eddie Howe's done a wonderful job getting them into the Champions League. They've won trophies now up there, doing absolutely fantastic stuff. Do you believe that there will be a point, maybe even now, maybe even it's before the season starts, is there a point now where he's thinking to himself, hang on a minute, this ain't for me, I'm going in a different direction?
Yeah, because look, what player can they attract now? What players can they attract? You look at it, can they attract, because they got the money, could they attract Diomande? Probably not. Could they attract even could they attract Rashford from Man United? Could they attract him? Do you know what I mean? Could they even attract Trossard? Do you know what I mean? Like, couldn't they attract top players to go up to Newcastle and buy into what they're doing and say we're going places? I don't think Newcastle are going places. I think they've hit a ceiling because they can't get any better right now because there's that cap that's been over it. The others that got through, Man City, Arsenal, they're doing their thing. They're buying the top players. Can Newcastle get up to